Today I'm joined by one of the most experienced and respected figures in American Buhurt. He spent more than 30 years in program management and process engineering professionally. While dedicating over 3 decades to medieval combat, he began training in 1992, founding his own sword school, and has served the American Medieval Combat Federation Board and has been head marshal of HMB-USA and Medieval Combat USA since 2016. He's officiated some of the biggest events in the world, including Battle of Nations, Buhurt Prime, Buhurt League World Cup, and dozens of tournaments across the United States. Beyond refereeing, he's organized major events, helped shape rules and safety standards, and has been instrumental in the growth of Buhurt, both nationally and internationally. It is my pleasure to welcome you, the Head Marshal of Medieval Combat USA, Joe Cadieux.
So, Idaho ran very smooth. You had Dallas there. What's like your support system like? It seems like there's a lot of new marshals, which I see almost as a bad thing. That the experienced people that could be making things smooth, making safe calls, making correct calls. It's like where are they? Now it's like, at least in the last 4 tournaments I've been to, it's you and Dallas and a bunch of new people. What's the state of marshaling?
Well, I can give you stats actually. Hold on one second.
Please.
You know, I'm on the board for MCU, right? Medieval Combat USA, which is the national org for Buhurt International. One of the things I do as a board member and as the head marshal for the US is give an annual report to the board about the state of marshals. So I actually have that data. Let me find out where I put it here.
I'll edit all this in post.
Yep. That document.
I won't. I should go.
Oh, well, I saw Johnny's video, by the way. I didn't see the whole thing because it's pretty long.
I know they're all long.
Yeah, I saw a lot of it. I like the flow of it, man. But yeah, edit. What's that?
McCabe gave me about 4 hours.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Johnny gave me 3 hours and 55 minutes.
Yeah.
And I condensed it down to 2 hours. That's a lot of editing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Johnny was great.
Nice.
It was extra easy because we already know each other, you know.
Yeah. For Johnny or McCabe?
Yeah.
Okay. McCabe is new. You guys didn't really hang out too much before, right?
Never seen him before.
Okay.
I think I saw, like, we locked eyes for a second at Carnage without knowing who each other was.
Yeah.
Not that I'm anybody, but
yep.
Hey.
There we go. Well, you will be. You're up and comer there, sir.
I'm an up-and-comer. I'm an up-and-comer for sure.
Hold on. But yeah, the funny thing that I wanted to say was, yeah, I knew Andrew McCabe back when he had
hair. Yeah.
And
to joke about him.
Better jouster than him, just so you know. In short, you know, while you're eyeballing that, I can tell you some stats and some information. We have always had a little bit of a light marshal pool that has started to really change in the last 2 years. Before last year, you could, with both hands and a couple toes, you could count all the conference and international certified marshals in the United States. That has started to change. We've been really blessed, I think, with getting a lot of new recruits. And there is a problem with being, you know, with the new recruits being kind of the main wave of who you have at events. However, it also shows a good trend for learning and a good trend for realization that marshaling is cool and fun, and marshaling is an essential part of what makes these tournaments happen. For many years, whenever we would have marshals, what would happen would be teams would form and they would say, okay, well, this guy doesn't have armor yet, and this guy's broken and old or whatever, make them marshals. Seriously, that's how a lot of people became marshals, is because they were too old, too broken, or too poor to be fighters, or just too lazy to get their equipment and shit in order. And then they were like, okay, well, you're not really ready to fight, so go do something else. Go be a marshal. You can clean toilets, you can wash a cat, or you can be a marshal. So that was the kind of afterthought that we were for many years. That has changed. I think a lot of people realize that I take it seriously. A lot of the people that are good at this take it seriously, and that can really make a difference in how an event goes down, right? Having good refs, good marshals, making good calls, and being knowledgeable makes a huge difference. So, it's something that's one of my big passions and drives, is to make sure that we get a large, growing marshal community, and that it continues to grow, and that the folks that are, starting out are getting the right foundation, and that they are given the right training and knowledge, and then we can form them into something, better. So,
Okay. So where is marshaling heading now? We got a lot of new guys.
yep.
It seems like, to me, a lot of the old hands, or the guys that could run their own over the last number of years, that can run their own tournaments, that I'm not sure if they're around. I see you at almost everything. Where are we at now? Where is the future of marshaling?
Right. So I like to go to lots of events. I went to 13 last year. I'm on track to go to 18 this year. That's a lot. That's more than one a month. So that, if you add all that together, that's, I'm able to cover a lot. We have, I think we're on track to have like 30 events in the US this year that are going to be BI events. So each BI event requires a marshal, right? At least a regional certified marshal to run it. If you're a demo event, not so much, but for anything that's higher, like a classic and above, you definitely need a certified marshal. If you're a classic, I believe the regulation is you have to have an international certified. Anything more than that, you have to have multiple international certified and or multiple conference marshals. So there are regulations about what is required for different events. The event in Idaho, because I am a international certified or better, and Dallas is a conference or better, where we were more than covered. I think the bar there is at least a regionally certified. So that's just as far as the requirements for what the league requires, that's covered. For the whole pool of marshals, I think we have some experienced folks like Mark Jackson and Mark Sanders, Ronan. Those are the guys that are the ones that are, I would say, on the West Coast are, their conference, and they're also the more experienced ones. They're still around. Mark Sanders is a teacher, so during the spring and fall seasons, he's very busy. During summers, he has more availability. I saw on the Facebook post today that he might be coming to Fresno to work as a marshal. But he helps out Jay with Golden Ring Series stuff a lot, just because he likes doing those. And he's lives in Santa Barbara, so he's easy to get to LA. So he'll be around, and he is around. But I know Mark Jackson also had some health issues recently, so he's been taking a break, and he's starting to work his way back. So we'll be seeing more of him now that he's feeling better. So,
yeah. So there's a lot of fucking nerds in the sport.
Yeah.
You and I, we have our own special relationship.
Yeah.
Where we've had two special encounters, I'd say now. We're buddies. Yep. I would consider us friends. You're on the list of guys. I want to see you at these tournaments. You didn't come up I don't think you were asked to come up to the Sanger fight. And it's like I knew you weren't going to be there, but once I got there and you weren't there, I was like, fuck, where's Joe at? Because you're at so many of our tournaments, you're our West Coast guy,
Well, thanks, man. And I was at the other Sanger event that I just kind of randomly showed up at, remember? And that was fun. And it just happened to be, that was right before that longsword workshop that we did.
That was great.
Yeah, but I didn't know about that one, but it was also it conflicted with the training I was going to do with Miriam that weekend. So I was not going to be available for that, unfortunately, because of that. So, yeah.
So, is there like fandom, anime, gaming? What are you into? What's your nerd shit? I'm assuming you seem like, to me, like you could be really into like a 40K or like a tabletop gaming.
Starting back at the dawn of time, I made some really good friends years and years ago playing Dungeons and Dragons. True
Hell
story.
yeah, Dungeons and Dragons. You heard it here.
I
Fuck
started
yes.
playing it at 7 years old. And
Hell yeah.
we actually, we had stone tablets and we're tapping out the code. And but no, seriously though, I started doing that when I was 7, and we had played role playing games. I played those consistently until I was like 19, 20 years old, and then started getting too busy with the rest of life. Occasionally, still get together with my buddies, and we do that on a weekend sometimes. We do a lot of other like tabletop games, or there's the family favorite of Catan. That one's always a winner, and somebody always gets a little angry at the end of that one. But it's a fun game, and the family likes doing it and everything. So that's on the tabletop gaming front. Video games. I've been playing video games pretty much my whole life. I started with the same friends. Atari 2600, which despised, but then we moved to Atari ST, which most people have never heard of, and then moved to what else did we move to? Then moved to like PC gaming back in the 386 days. So that's before your time, young man.
That's for sure. I had an Atari when I was like 7 or 8. I had an Atari.
You stick the cartridges in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the 2600. That's the old school gaming console one that they made. The Atari ST was like an actual computer version of that with a lot more capabilities.
Are you a PC gamer or a console gamer? What are you doing now?
Well, sir, I think you know where I work. I have always been, before that though, I've always been a PC gamer, 100%.
Okay.
I built my own PCs, built probably 5 or 6 from the ground up, from scratch. That's how I always do it. Built one for my son. That's that's just something I learned how to do years ago. And whenever I want a good gaming system, I make my own, and that's the way it is. But yeah, PC gamer. I played World of Warcraft for like 5 years.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And then currently, the only game that I really spend much time on is called Rust. And
Rust.
We
have out here doing raids on noobs.
Yeah.
Killing nakeds.
There's about three guys that I know that we get together periodically, and we'll play literally for 24 hours. And we'll play overnight. We'll just like do crazy shit, drink lots of beers, and have a good time.
So here's a bit of a brag here.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft, Frozen Throne, World of Warcraft 3.
Yep.
Frozen Throne. I beat 2 allied insanes.
Mm-hmm.
that is one of the accomplishments of my life.
Nice.
It took me like 11 hours.
Excellent.
For me, consoles, it's like PlayStation. It just always worked. I never had a bad one. I never had one that didn't last like well past like, what the ideal amount of time. They get hot once they get old. But it's like, turn them on, nostalgic sounds, and the titles I want to play, which are almost all RPGs. I'm not really that. I'm good at strategy games, but it's like I'm not that interested in them. I'm not really a guy that plays shooters. I'm mostly just playing RPGs, and the titles that PlayStation has are the ones that I've been playing since I was a kid.
Top one or 2 RPGs.
For me, the best RPG ever made is Witcher 3.
Okay.
Below that, Final Fantasy VII Original, and I really do like the remakes. And what the game I'm playing now, which would be number 3, is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Simply amazing game, man.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Cool.
Are you much of an RPG player?
Not so much here and there. I played, and I don't know if this would qualify, but like Baldur's Gate, the latest Baldur's Gate series.
That absolutely is an RPG. Yeah.
So I played that. I love that game. It just I would start it and then like look over and the sun was down and where did the time go? That's what happened to me with that, and that's the reason why I quit World of Warcraft, because I would like literally lose days. I was like, oh, where wasn't it just morning a minute ago? And yeah, but I leveled up, man. Look at my stats. Look at my loot. I got all
the way it goes.
Yeah, so that's why I actually played it when it came out for a good probably 7-8 months, and then one day realized that the day had disappeared, and I had actually was stuck on a part of the quest where you have to go into, there's a big cathedral, and you have to go in there and like attack it from multiple sides, and it's a horrible encounter. And if you don't have the right people, the right equipment, the right gear, and everyone's healed up and everything, you're never going to win. And I had to try it. This is the strategy part. I have to look at, and I game it. I save it, play it out, lose, save it, reload, reposition, attempt, reload, reattempt, so on and so forth. And I just look at it as a puzzle that I'm trying to solve. And I know that's how they design it, but that's the joy I get out of it, is solving the puzzle.
Yeah, the puzzle aspect of games can really get you hooked in, not just slashers.
Yep.
All right. So for the Romania, let's do this clip in thing. I'm gonna do this a couple times. This is just so that I can see when I'm editing where to clip. All right, for the Romania Invitational, I'm going with the team Minutemen, which is put together last minute. Pale Horse dropped out for a variety of reasons, and Ian Webb kind of put this 5 duelists together, and they're like, "Hey, let's form a team." They asked me, I said yes. We got Carl Jung, the star of Ordo, and then we got Matt Biondi, who is on Pale Horse. And we asked Blade Poole and Brant and Johnny Porter, of course. And I was hoping to get Sam Wheeler to go, but the list is full. They've dropped out. This is my first international tournament for judo or for Buhurt, but I've done tons and tons of international tournaments for judo.
Mm-hmm.
We have our belt system. We have black belts. Then we have coral belts, and then our highest 10th degree is a red belt. Jiu-Jitsu has their belts. When you get knighted in this sport, you get your white belt. In your perspective, you've been around a while. What is the white belt? What does the knighting mean to U.S. fighters and a fighter like yourself?
So, couple things, and I did review your little interview with Johnny, and I saw his take on it, which I actually have a very similar take. It means a lot to a lot of people. It doesn't mean that much to me because I was around when it started, when the whole like Order of the Drawn Sword and all that stuff. I do not have a white belt. I've never fought with this organization overseas. I fought in Canada before with on my own many moons ago, but I have not fought in Europe for a variety of reasons. But that is one of the things that I have not added to my collection. That is something that I think that some people take it very seriously. I actually was requested by Ronan to knight him, and I had to say, hey, I would love to, but I'm not a knight. So we went and found Joel Casillas, and he did the honors. And I was there with him because he wanted me to be there and to be part of it, which I was happy to support him and give him what he was looking for. But for me, it's a symbolic thing, of course, and it means a lot to some people. I think being resilient and coming back year over year means more than just doing it once. And that's all the belt really signifies is, yeah, you did it once, but you know, a lot of people can do it once. I want to see you do it again, you know. Repeatable, make it a repeatable, deliberate process. That's impressive.
Speaking of many moves and repeatable processes, Buhurt's been around for how long in the States?
So I know that it's been around since 2011. People have been training and forming up for this. I got involved in 2012. So I actually, the way I got involved, and you know, I have a longer history than that, but that's when I started getting involved in this part of the sport. In 2012, a buddy of mine, Eric Fick, was tapped as one of the guys to go to Poland. And he didn't have the money for it, and he was looking for sponsors. I was still a big traveling guy at the time and had like 90,000 United miles back in the day. That would get you a round trip to Warsaw. So I spent my miles and got him a round trip to Warsaw. And in turn, he said, I'm going to get you set up in this sport. And, you know, I never asked him to pay me back the miles, of course, or anything. But he's like, you know, my payment to you is I'm going to bring you into the sport. I'm going to get you set up, and you're going to be a fighter with me. And we're going to go fight together. Like, okay, cool. So he gets back from Poland. U.S. got their asses handed to them a couple times. But they came back with a lot of learnings. They came back with a lot of understandings that the way that they thought things were going to happen didn't. That you know, steel armor can handle steel weapons. Yes. There was a lot of folks that were, I am not from the SCA, never been, just to be clear. A lot of people are, a lot of people have been, but a lot of these original folks were former SCA folks or current SCA folks. And they had a misconception about, you know, you touch steel and you're going to die. You get hit with a steel weapon and you're going to implode, or, you know, whatever. And it was a misconstrued thought because of lack of proper armor. They had really shitty armor, or they, you know, never really aspired to have steel weapons. So they didn't have to have armor that would be resilient to a steel weapon. So there was no expectation that steel weapons were going to be anything besides just deadly. When you put proper equipment on that could handle a steel weapon, it's not so bad. Whatever, you get some bruises, you get some bumps, you know. I had been doing steel, though, for many years before that, and I already knew that. And so a lot of other guys then figured this out after 2012. I got involved, was ordering my armor, and we already talked about, if you were ordering armor, where did you go? Oh, go Marshal. So that's how I became a Marshal originally, was waiting for my armor. So I have many suits of armor. At the time of getting involved in Buhurt in 2012, I showed up in my 80 pounds of mild steel armor, and it's hard to be competitive against guys who are in 50 pounds of much lighter steel armor. So, yeah.
So 2011, 2012, the sport is emerging in the States.
Yes, sir.
Who are the players? Where are they?
Okay.
How is it a thing in Europe that's spread to over here?
So this is a little bit of legend, a little bit of lore, and a little bit of facts on the ground that I'm aware of. So there was a guy who was over in Russia and saw this. There were some videos that were posted on YouTube of training. It got to these, you know, very macho SCA guys who are like, you know, I can do that. I will go blow those guys up. I'm going to go fight these guys. So there was a desire to basically show off their prowess and the strength of these individuals that needed to form a team around them so they could go do this. That's how it got started. It was an ego thing. The main players were from the East Coast mostly. They're the, you know, this, I'm sure you've heard the names of the various folks that are originally the original originators of this in the United States. As far as the West Coast, there was a guy named Anthony Lynch, who was one of the guys who went over to Poland. Nice guy, great guy. I worked with him for a lot. He was the original founder of Versus, one of the original founders of Versus. and he that's what I actually still have an Ursus tabard in my garage because I was originally part of Ursus. If you were on the West Coast in California, you were Ursus, period. So we used to drive from San Diego to Gilroy, where our practices were. We would hold our practices in Gilroy every weekend, and me, Makoto, my friend Elliot, and a few others would pile in the car, would drive north, and we'd get together. And I sent you a couple pictures of this ahead of time of us sitting out there in armor, like giving me a thumbs up. Yeah, we would drive up to Gilroy, we'd hang out for the weekend, get there Friday night, drink some beers, hang out by the pool. Saturday, we'd fight all day, have a barbecue. Sunday, we would eat breakfast and head south.
So, hell yeah, dude, that's awesome.
So we did that for the better part of a year, getting ready for the national selection tournament, which was always in Springfield, Illinois. That was where it was at during the old days, and that's where we went to in 2013 to form up the team that was going to go in 2012 for 2013. So it was like September, October of 2012, getting ready for Aigues-Mortes, which was the Battle of the Nations in France in 2013.
So at this time, there's how many U.S. fighters? Under 100?
Probably 50 or so. And a lot of them were, it'd be a stretch to call them like Buhurt fighters. They were trying out for Buhurt fighters, but a lot of them, they had backgrounds in various things. They had gear that was from, a buddy or whatever. And some of it was acceptable. Some of it was absolutely unacceptable. And they figured that out after the fact. So, yeah.
What's the state at this time, 2012, 2013? We know where America's at, around 50 real fighters, where we have selection in Illinois. What is Europe doing? Because the sentiment right now from time is that they're great because they've been doing it so much longer than us. We're about 13 or 14 years into having Buhurt in America. What is the state in 2012, 2013 of Buhurt in Europe at this
time? In Europe, there was it was dominated the field of this is specifically with at the time there was really only one large international organization for Buhurt, and that was Historic Medieval Battles, or HMB, based out of Russia. The Russians were number one. Then we had the Ukrainians, Polish, Belarusians. Those were like the next teams. Teams like countries like France, Spain, etc., were at the time still very nascent in it. We actually had trouble getting more than 2 French teams to show up to the event that was in France because they weren't geared up enough. They weren't trained up enough. They weren't ready. That is not the case anymore. They have a gazillion teams there of high caliber. And, same with like Germany. They had a team, but they were like, they were okay, middle of the road. So 2012 was an eye-opening wake-up call for the U.S. They realized that they got their asses handed to them. 2013, it was time for revenge. So they showed up in mass in France, and I was happy to be a part of it. I worked as an armorer at the time. I wasn't a marshal. I was the armorsmith. That was my duty. And I went out there and fixed people's armor on the field, worked on the sidelines with another armorer who was there, fixing whatever needed to get done and fixed for the team, sitting on the sidelines during the battles, baling wiring shit together and not duct taping, but, hockey taping things together. But that was what I was doing for that tournament. I got to be right up against the rail, just like a marshal. And that was kind of cool, getting that close perspective. But that was the year that the U.S. started to be competitive. It's because they had a year of training and a year of understanding how poorly they did the first time, learning from the mistakes, trying to do better, taking fitness and health seriously, taking training seriously. And they were actually able to be very competitive against Russia in the larger battles. So I think at the time they had 16s. I think it was 21.
Joe, can you hear me? Is our internet? Joe? I got full internet. Joe?
Hey,
Okay.
hey, Greg. I see you. You're back. All right.
All right. 6 teams, you said. Huh. Can you hear me? You can hear me. I can't hear you. Technical difficulties.
Yeah. I see you. I can hear
We're back.
you. We're back.
Okay. 6 teams, you said.
6 teams. Yeah. So let's see. Back me up here. What was we were talking about the Ogmort. We're talking about Battle of Nations.
2013. Time to get a revenge.
Yep.
You're there as a blacksmith.
Yep. So so the competition that the U.S. did the best in, we did okay in the fives. We had 3 teams from the U.S. that went in the fives division. So we were represented by USA Team 1, 2, and 3. And then we had a combined team that made up the 21 division. So today we do it 5s, 12s, and 30s. Then we did it 5s, 21s, and they didn't have a 30s at the time. So now we've kind of gone up and down. So, yeah.
So at this time, what is this time in 2013?
Yep.
What is the selection process on getting Team USA for 5s?
Well, I mentioned you go to Springfield, Illinois. So you have to, there's a whole checklist. You had to participate in so many conference tournaments. So, for example, if you wanted to be on the West Coast and be a part of the national selection tournament and get considered, you'd have to go to at least 3 events in your region. That means you'd have to go to, we had in the place in Gilroy, we actually had a tournament there so we could have a selection tournament there. And then we did 2 others. I think we did one in Livermore, and then we did one in LA, I think, or Corona. But we did these selection tournaments, and everyone, if you wanted to be considered, you had to show up and fight. So we had guys coming down from Washington State, from Oregon, from Arizona. We had quite a few coming in from there. William Woodbury, Bam Bam, he was there. We had Simon, who you've probably heard of. He's semi-retired now. He was there, and a few others that were forming up their own little teams to compete for the right to go to Springfield and compete in the national selection tournament. So the national selection tournament was not like what we do today, where you have your club team and your club goes and tries to get a spot as a club to represent the U.S. Then it was you're going as just a competitor. You're going to form up with your team maybe, but there's no guarantee or promise whatsoever that your team is going to be what's represented in the U.S. For example, the team that ended up being USA 1 was a cherry-picked team with people from all over. They're just kind of shoved together a la Dominus without the training and maybe without the skill as team number 1. Team number 2 was a club team, and team number 3 was a club team. But that being a club team wasn't necessarily a given. And if you're a team 1, that means you're probably just 6'7" and 500 pounds and able to not fall down. Yeah.
What is the selection process now?
Oh, that's a great question. It is actually very well documented and is posted on the MCU website. So there is a whole selection process, qualification process, etc. The Medieval Combat USA will be hosting a selection tournament for the U.S. They will host a selection tournament for the men's, the women's, and the duelists. These will probably be combined into one event, but they could also be separated into multiple events. We could have a duels selection tournament and a melee Buhurt selection tournament.
So do we still go as individuals selected, or do we go as this team this club goes, they do so well that we send this club, but we call them USA 1?
So it's gonna be, and this has been consistent since probably since 2015, where it's based around the club. So it's no longer an individual thing. That was all, again, more ego and more baloney. The bad old days are gone, and we're all happy about this. So the current world, which I think is a step in the right direction, is a team is selected. They present their roster, they fight and show that they can win, and then they're given the accolades of you are team 1 or 2 or 3. Last World Cup in Hungary last year, we were only allowed to bring 2 teams because we wanted to make sure everything was consistent with the other countries' capabilities to field teams. It also had to do with time slots, etc. So instead of bringing 3 teams, we only brought 2 teams. I don't know how that will shake out in 2027 for the World Cup, but at least 2 teams from each country will be invited to participate, from my understanding.
What were the last 2 teams that were selected?
In for 2012 or 2013?
No, for 2026.
Oh,
for the last World.
Oh, last 2. Oh, for the World Cup that just happened. Okay, in Hungary. So we had Dominus and Canaz. Those are the 2 that went.
Do you think that those are the 2 best teams to have gone, or could we have made a team of selected individuals to do even better?
I think that those were good representations of the better teams in the U.S. at the time. Yes, I think that they earned their spots. There's no doubt about that. I think both of those teams are quality for various different reasons. Obviously, Dominus is a cherry pick team. They're not a geographically based team. And I think that the concept of geographically based team is kind of a little soft and squishy these days, with Pale Horse being a good example of one, where they have members all over the U.S., but they do train together. That's one thing that I think, even Dominus, they didn't, I don't know about anymore. And of course they're on hiatus right now, but they didn't necessarily train together as much as they individually trained. And then they kind of trained together ish, but they brought a lot of big firepower to the table. It's just a different mentality versus getting in the gym every day, working out with the same guys, and forming up a good team ethic together.
What were the women's teams that went?
There was no women's fighting in 2013.
Sorry, we're talking about the last one.
Yeah, so the women's teams, that is actually a great question, because the women's, there was a little bit of kerfuffles with that team. There were teams that were invited, they couldn't make it. Teams that were invited as the backup, they couldn't make it. They ended up forming. Honestly, I don't even know who the teams were that were finally selected. I recognize a couple of them. Kelsey was there to help represent one team. Beth Hammer was there to help out, but it was really just kind of an amalgamation of folks that ended up going and kind of trying to represent. A lot of them were brand new, and a lot of them had never been to an event before. And unfortunately, the level of compete that was shown was representative of such a situation. So,
is there, you think, a strategy or something you'd like to see change in the current state of women's Buhurt in America that would make our women more competitive at world level events?
So this is something that I think we've turned the corner on the men's side in general, which is just sheer number of participants. We need a bigger pool. We are still, the women's teams are still very understaffed. We only have, like, how many women do you have fighting with your Bears? One
We
consistently.
have
Consistently.
2, and one, I think, waiting for armor now.
Okay, so maybe she should be a marshal. Joke. That's a joke. But so that means you have 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And maybe Catherine Zog will also return
yeah.
and start training with us as well.
I love Kat. Her and I met at the airport in Serbia in 2019 and took the bus together. We were on the Buhurt bus from the airport in Serbia down to the location where the castle where they had the event. And we hung out and just chilled and chatted for 2 hours. And then we got there and saw each other on and off here and there, and just, chit-chatted and hung out. And we've been good friends since. And she's a great person, love her, and I love her dog too. So yeah.
Blue. She has another dog, Red, now.
I
Shout out
heard.
Blue and Red.
I saw a picture. Yeah.
I really like Zog. She can talk so fast, but she's still concise. And my learning style, I get distracted when she talks because she can talk so fast, and I'm actually like, amazed just how quick she can talk. But my learning style is here's everything all at once. So I actually like if something itches my brain when she speaks in the way that she speaks.
Nice.
Because I don't think I've ever met anyone that quite has the same speech pattern and rhythm as her. So okay, so
yep.
Buhurt for women in America is a little rough on the competitive side internationally. Back in 2013, let's rewind now.
Yep.
What's the state of women's at this time? We've got Ursus over here. What's East Coast? And then what are the girls doing across the U.S. in 2013?
So there was a couple of East Coast teams. One was I think it was the Drawn Sword. Was it? No, there was a one with a shield and a sword. They're very bland. There was a couple teams in the Midwest, and that was kind of it. That was for men's. There was no women Buhurt, period, because it was not allowed by the Russians. They did not like it. They thought the women should be at the cook fire, cooking.
Okay.
Seriously, they had videos back in 2013 or so showing, hey, the man's getting ready, he's putting his armor on. Where are the women? Oh, they're cleaning the bowls and making the dinner. Don't worry about them. We're going to go back to the guys. And yeah, trust me, the women did not like that or appreciate it. So roll around to 2015, we started to form up women's teams, and the HMB finally allowed it in 2015. But before that, it was not even a possibility. I had a good friend of mine who, this is the only time that I really was had somebody that I knew that was really going to IMCF. She trained with me in 2014, and she went into Spain in 2014 and represented the U.S., got a gold medal for women's melee and then for longsword. So she got 2 individual gold medals for that. And she did great. And she retired since then, but she did really good for the 2015 or 2014 event in Belmonte, Spain. That was the first IMCF event. And after that, that's when HMB said, oh, guess what? We can have women too. And then they allowed women to join in.
Okay, 2015.
Yep.
U.S. is trying to get an revenge. There's only a few teams in America, really. Girls are starting to be allowed in. Who are the teams? Who are the influencers at this time that are starting to advance Buhurt in America to where we are now?
So just to be clear, you're talking 2015?
2015.
Okay. So 2015, there was a couple schisms that happened in the background, which I won't go into too detailed right now, but the state of affairs for HMB in the U.S., which is what they support Battle of the Nations, and that's what we're talking about, was that HMBIA, which is the international organization for HMB, came to a bunch of folks and said, hey, if you guys want to reform up your own organization, we'll make you the national organization for our league in the US. And that became the birth of HMB USA, which is the originator of Buhurt, or MCU, or the Medieval Combat USA. That's our lineage if you trace it all the way back. So the people that were a part of that were a couple people from the East Coast, and mainly the captain of the team at the time, which was someone I've mentioned before, Anthony Lynch. So Anthony Lynch ended up being the captain of the team and kind of one of the main drivers of forming up a team in 2015. So the one thing that I left out and didn't mention is, because of the schism that happened, the U.S. really had a very, very, very poor showing in 2014. There was an event in 2014. That was the Battle of Nations everyone wants to forget. That's the first year that Alex Casillas and his original group out of Riverside area all went, and they represented with no idea what they were going up against. They put the USA 1 on their fronts. This is after the previous year, the U.S. actually took a round from the Russia team. Russia won and USA won, and they took a round from the Russia team, which was unheard of. So when USA 1 got on the field in 2014, the Russians absolutely decimated them because they thought it was the same kind of team that they had the previous year. These were new guys, that knew nothing of the sport really, and they were going out basically in the same kind of situation that the 2012 guys went out there as. So they had a lot of learnings.
All right, so 2014, we get our bottoms beat.
Yeah.
2015, girls are allowed in the sport.
Yeah.
We got to come up. 2016, pushing forward. What's starting to happen in the U.S.?
A slow expansion. And to go from 2014 to 15 to 16, you're definitely seeing a start of building up different teams. We have the Palmetto Knights in the Southeast are kind of forming up. We have the Plague Rats in the New York area. New York. Yeah, we have. There's still not really much going on in Texas at the time. Then you also have Iron Phoenix forming up in Washington area. Yeah, and so you start to have these different teams start to form up. You have Ursus. This is when I think 2015-16 is when Order Draconis officially emerges, and they start becoming a force. So there's a few good teams with a lot of history that have started to come together around that time.
What are you doing at this time between your going to Worlds as a blacksmith and 2016? What are you doing in that gap?
Sure. So 2013, I went to Ogmort as a blacksmith. 2014 was a rough year. I did not attend anything on 2014. 2015, I was invited to attend Battle of the Nations. The lovely Russian oligarchs offered me a free ride to go to Prague and to work as a marshal. I accepted, and I worked basically. At the time, there were two ways to get your international certification. One, you pass a test and do a bunch of other things. The other one was you work the whole weekend at Battle of the Nations and show that you can handle your stuff and do the job. And then at the end, you'll be certified. So I took that route. So I did the apprentice program basically for Battle of the Nations in 2015, got Marshal MVP in the process. So for 2015, I was the MVP Marshal for Battle of the Nations. And that's where I got my original certification. That's when I became a marshal, in a certified marshal. I had been marshaling some of those selector events I told you about before in Illinois. I would attend those and work as a marshal there. But besides that, I was still working on training for Buhurt.
2016 to, I'd say, right up to the pandemic, there in that window of time, those 4.5 years, it seems like there was a huge inrush of fighters, especially fighters that have continued and are team captains and are our current legends, our current heroes in the U.S. Most of the Dominus was added to the U.S. rosters around this time. What was the big spur in America that really brought all these new fighters who continue to be legends now?
That's a great question. I think some of them were around before the 2015 time, but a lot of them started to emerge around that time. I think this is where the sport started to really spiderweb out into the mainstream. It started to, and I should say, in the a little bit more mainstream. It's still very niche and still very small compared to a lot of other things, but it's more people would know about it. And it started to get into gyms. It started to get into other martial arts and other areas where people were aware that you could do this cool thing, grab an axe, smash your buddy in the head, and then go have a beer with him afterwards, and nobody's going to die. It's pretty amazing. A lot of people don't realize that you can even do this stuff. But that's where a lot of the folks that were original Dominus members, and they've gone through, a couple roster changes. When they started to form up was around that 2015, 2016 timeframe ish. So, yeah.
2017, there's a legend about this year. I believe this is when the Simon strap might have been invented. The sport is inherently dangerous.
Yes.
But we wear great armor. We have certain specific rules. What I've heard is the last time someone died in this sport was 2017. How common was it before, and how common has it been since then?
I have heard rumors of one person in like Poland or Ukraine dying or getting actually severely injured. I don't know if they'd actually died, but getting like lacerations on their back and having some sort of spinal problems. There used to be a rule that you could not swing and hit squarely across the back. There was because of bad back protection. So there was like minimal back protection was required because that was an illegal shot. So there was a lot of concern about that. That rule got dropped in around 2015 timeframe also, because people realized you could improve the armor. A lot of people started wearing secondary layers of protection underneath, like motorcycle armor or whatever, and then they would wear other armor on top, giving them another layer of protection. So that was something that a lot more education with better armor helped people to be able to excel more. Yeah, so I think that's in short where things started to get a little more real there. I honestly still don't know of anyone officially that I know of that I can track down that has died in this sport. There have been severe injuries, but for the most part, knock on wood, we are safe. And we are safe because you wear the right equipment and you have the right training and we have the right rules. And that's where I come into play. I always tell this to my marshals and myself. This is my first rule is safety, fighter safety, my safety. Making sure everybody's safe. I want to go hang out and have a beer after this. I don't want to be this is the last straw, the last hurrah. Nah, I'm here to have fun, rinse, repeat, and do it again repeatedly. Right.
So 2018, 2019, 2020, all these legends are coming around. Guys are training, being added to the sport, the guys who are making waves now still that have their own teams. Pandemic hits. What's happening to Buhurt in America when we're supposed to shelter in place and we're not allowed to see our friends and be outside?
Yeah. Those were dark days, I think, for everyone all around. The last event that I went to was in 2019, Battle of Nations in May, because they always used to be in April, May, usually coinciding with the May Day holiday weekend. That would be, that was the last Battle of Nations, Battle of Nations 10. We were forming up and planning to do Battle of the Nations 11. 2 years later, there was going to be a invitational tournament and then in 2020 was going to be an invitational tournament, and 2021 would be the next Battle of Nations. So easy, the invitational got canceled immediately when everything hit the fan. Everything was still forming up and trying to have the invitation or the Battle of Nations in Romania for 2021. So that was always the goal and the plan. And that got shut down eventually by more COVID stuff. So that was the end of that kind of attempt. The last HMB event I attended was in 2022 when things were starting to open up a little bit. And I attended the invitational then that was called Prime in Serbia. It was originally supposed to be in Monaco. So that's where it was supposed to be. Flew into Nice and then was quickly redirected to Serbia because the location changed. And there was a big bad reason why that happened.
Is that the war in Ukraine?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Literally. So you met Vitaly.
Yes.
So in January, I think it was January, February of that year, we were working together here in the U.S. where I was hosting the national selection tournament for Battle of Nations. We were getting the team formed up. We did a national selection tournament here in Temecula, California, in preparation for what was going to be the Battle of the Nations in 2023. So we're doing our selection tournament in 2022 with every intention of going to Battle of Nations in 2023, right? We are hearing about the rumblings of troops on the border and all that stuff, which has happened before, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, nothing's going to really happen, no big deal. We get on a plane. As we land, we're hearing that Kiev's getting bombed and all these other things are happening, and we're with Vitaly. So that was very disconcerting and very a rough time. So he was, of course, he has his family. He has family there. He has, his life is there. So it's not a good thing at all. A lot of the teams immediately say, we're not attending, we're not participating in this. The U.S. team shows up anyways. I show up anyways. We are at the event, and that's what they call it now, Prime, not Prime. But that was the last time they had an invitational through the HMB organization.
So from the pandemic all the way up to Prime, not Prime, what's Joey Cadieux doing?
Well, doing whatever I can to stay sane through the crazy of what was the COVID world. Mostly just working on stuff in the garage, trying to get armor tuned up, ordering equipment, ordering armor, getting things cleaned out and cleaned up, whatever. So one of my little things I do on the side is I work with schools on educational stuff. And I teach people about armor and history and stuff where I can. And I continued to do that during the pandemic. So we just do it virtually like this. So I'd go into my garage and take my camera around and show them my armor, pick up a couple swords and, show the kids stuff. But I had been doing that for years before this. And I still do that, at least once a year. I go down to the middle school and meet with a couple classes. Some of my ordo buddies local here go down with me and we put on a little show for the kids and they love it. I get a stack literally of letters from these kids about how much they enjoyed it and all the cool things they saw there and asking questions about the fighting and stuff. So it's a very, very enjoyable, moment to connect with everybody.
So I know, because we're buddies, you're specialized in terms of your fighting. You're mostly a longsword duelist. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
What is your start to all the way up to Prime? What are you doing in terms of your own fighting up until then?
Longsword practice, and that means jib time, cardio, Pell time, working on different maneuvers and stuff. A lot of it though is going to be just solo practice, and that's really you can get so much out of it. You can still improve that way, but it's one of the wonderful things is fighting people with different styles, right? Is finding people that fight and approach the fight a little differently so that you can train against them. I always like to you know I used to have a good group of guys that I would work with and train with, and I would know each of their styles. I knew how each of them was going to fight. I could, read them like a book. And then when we put new people in, it was exciting because you never knew exactly how they were going to fight at first, right? So you have to suss them out and figure out how they're going to approach it. Are they more of an aggressive person? Are they going to be a little more hesitant or more of a counterpuncher? There's lots of possibilities. You got to go poke them a little bit and see what they do, see how they react, and then you can respond accordingly.
So in judo, we
Yep.
had a head of our organization that did not come from judo, that was basically selected off his resume rather than his experience with our sport. You're a longsword duelist. You've been doing this a long time. Your fighting career begins before Buhurt in America existed.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who are marshaling. A lot of new guys coming in, a lot of new girls who coming in. Does it discount the type or quality of martial that they are because they don't necessarily come from fighting or a combat sport?
So I think a couple things there. I think because I do have the combat background and the combat sport background, I see things that other marshals may not see right away. Right. Um, one of my favorite things is to find the flow of the fight and just fly around the field, as the action's happening and be in a safe position at all times, but constantly moving because the fight's constantly moving, right? So when I have two very dynamic teams on the field, that's a rush. That's awesome because I have to run for my freaking life, man. I have some videos of me bailing out of a arena one time and a longsword coming down, smash right where I was. I was safe, no harm, no foul. Flag got a little ripped maybe or whatever. That's good. That's par for the course. But that's the adrenaline boost and adrenaline rush I get out of this. Is being in the middle of everything, with no armor, running around like a little chicken with my head cut off, staying safe. But because of my training and my background and my experience, I can do that. People who don't have that may not have that inherent capability. They have to learn it a little bit more. And that just takes practice and time, repetition. They'll spend more time on the outside of the arena. I like to throw people in, give them a taste, then bop them out and say, okay, you saw what it's like. Now you need to be ready for that. You need to be dynamic. You need to be mobile. You need to watch your back to the rail. Don't give a fighter your back. Keep your pull as your measure of distance on how far you need to be away from the fighters, 5 to 6 feet minimum. And those are just some of the basics, but that's some of the things that if you're not a Buhurt fighter, if you're not someone into this kind of sport initially, it'll take some time to pick that up. So yeah, that's an advantage I have, and other fighters who transition into marshaling also have as a benefit.
Now, what are you looking for as the Knight Marshal, the head marshal of the USA?
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking at to see, this line marshal could be somebody special? What are the things that you see, this person is doing the things that make a successful line marshal?
Right. Obviously, first one is just attention to detail, watching the fight. You can tell that they are engaged, that they are paying attention. They're watching all aspects of the fight. They're looking for anything that looks out of place. And the expectation always is that they have the basic, at least, knowledge of the rules. They understand what is a legal, illegal action, what is prohibited action, what things to call out to the Knight Marshal. because they'll be starting as a line marshal, which means they won't necessarily be taking action themselves. They'll be informing the field and night marshals to take action. So they need to understand those areas. I like to bring the marshals all together after each round and have a little quick conference and like, okay, you guys see anything? All good? Great. Go. And or you saw something? Okay, what did you see? Tell me about it. Let's talk about it. I saw this. Well, and others will chime in. I saw that too. It was actually okay because of XYZ. Okay, no problem. I understand. Break, go back. So that there's a constant education feedback loop. So people are always getting their knowledge and upscaling their skills. That's the way to learn, and that goes with anything. With working as a marshal, absolutely, you need that feedback loop. You need that ability to ask questions, get your assumptions and thoughts validated or declined, and move on.
What, let's say someone's been line marshaling, they've specifically been with you, maybe 3 or 4 tournaments. What do you see that would make you approach a line marshal and say, maybe marshaling is not for you?
Lack of focus. If somebody is not paying attention, they're too busy on their phone, they're too busy just jabber-jawing with their buddies. They don't feel comfortable being a marshal. There was one person at one event who turned to another marshal and said, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be here. That's okay. You can please go sit down, have a beer, enjoy yourself, but don't be a marshal on the field or in a position of authority and say that you don't know what you're doing. And yeah, that's not encouraging to anyone, and least of all to your boss.
So some of my favorite martial decisions, let's say, have come from pause. Hold on a second, Joe. There's a real loud car alarm going off right now.
No worries.
That's good. Okay, there it goes. All right. So one of my favorite things about, let's say, martial decisions, which has benefited me, is things from the rule the cool. I want to ask a 2-part question here. For one, there is modern martial gear, and then there is the medieval style martial gear. For me, the rule of cool is wear the medieval stuff. I think it looks good on you guys. It makes us look more official, I think.
Yeah.
With it seems like so many tournaments now are modern wear. What is your preference? What do you think that the standard should be?
Well, and this is where I'm going to kind of say it in 2 parts. Also, my answer. I like traveling with one suitcase, one light bag, and I can do that with the modern stuff. If I take the historic stuff, I almost need a whole nother bag for that stuff.
Yeah.
When I'm going to Europe, I literally could put all my clothes that I'm going to take into like a small bag, but then I have the martial stuff. It's like, okay, now I have to bring a big freaking suitcase. And it's mostly for the martial stuff that on my big trip, I'm going to use twice. So it's a little excessive. I love it though. I like looking good. So nothing wrong with that. So I enjoy the historic outfits. It's the purview of the event organizer to choose if they want it to be modern or historic. I kind of like the historic also. However, there is a burden of, just getting it to location. That's it.
Yeah, it sucks to bring 80 pounds of armor plus the helmet and you want to shoot, Joe.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, I hear you. I guess you're right. I guess.
Yeah. Rule of cool, part
Yeah.
2. There is, of course, the need for our historic accuracy and people taking too far. Where do we separate the needs of the sport and safety and the fun aspect of what we wear and the way it looks. When do we get a little bit of it's okay because it's the rule of cool, or is it just the standard and that's the only way?
Huh. So, a couple things. Again, my job is safety as a marshal. Um, and safety isn't always cool, but it's important. I think that I understand where you're coming from. Um, the AC guys have gotten a bad rap for years, and there's a whole story about that too. I'll tell you sometime. But they are starting to be the kinder, gentler AC. They're trying to be a little more inclusive and supportive, and I think they're doing a decent job. They're growing the AC group, the AC officers, from a squad of one to many now, and it's nice to see. Um, it's the decision was made, and there was a vote on this, by the way, a poll that was taken, I think, a year ago or 2 years ago, where the community was asked, do you want authenticity? Is that something that you like? Do you want things to be authentic, or do you don't really care about that? And it was the poll came back that the members were encouraging the organization to support AC and authenticity standards. So that was kind of where we kept the focus around AC as something that we were pushing forward as an organization, because the membership showed us in the poll that they wanted it. I like things to be historic. We live in a sport today that is 100% sport optimized. There's similarities to historic armor, but it's not historic armor. There's armor that we can kind of look at that's similar, but it's not a replica. You would misspeak to call it a replica. It's like this kind of armor, but it's not really that armor. And there's many reasons why. Obviously, we have better modern materials. We can skimp on certain things and still make it safe. We also want to make movement and the ability to manipulate our weapons highly as one of the priorities. We want to be able to swing harder and better and stronger, more range, etc. And sometimes historic armor might be limiting in that.
So there's my understanding there's a push towards 50 years where your armor is historically accurate. In my view, finding documentation for your armor that matches your weapon and a shield or whatever is a barrier to the sport. One, if it were a hard rule now, these 50 years, kits that some of the best fighters from the US would suddenly be not allowed in the sport. And the new barrier to fighting, it's already expensive.
Yeah.
I think that the barrier would be even greater, and this push, or whatever you want to call it, moving AC to being more specific and having very specific documentation for your armor, is a barrier to our sport growing. What is your take on where AC is headed and maybe the barriers, especially to new people when it's already expensive?
Right. So, couple things. I know for years there's been a push to have we're going to have a set of these are the 5 or 6 armor styles and types that if you want to just crack open the documents and look at it, you can get a cop visor and this and that and whatever, and that's a full kit that AC will give you a thumbs up on immediately. Get a sparrow beak helm, this and that, whatever, and there's another set that you can look at. And some of these parts are interchangeable, some of them aren't. And I think that there has been a push on the documentation side from AC to provide some of those options. If you look at some of the recent work that's been done on footwear, on helmets, neck protection, etc., they have a lot of these kind of areas that they're going towards. They've also done a lot of documents on specific helmet styles. and what works good on those different versions. It's the 50 years mark I've heard of. It was previously 100 years, and cranking it down to 50 is just tightening the screws, I think, a little bit. And I see what you're saying as far as it being maybe an additional barrier that's not necessary. I like the idea of things matching. There's also the opposite. Well, like, well, what if a guy, and we've had this happen, brings a 1300s sword that was in the Majorkowski Bible, and he's wearing 1500s armor. That's over a 200-year gap in the time frames there. So that's really not gonna. That shouldn't happen. That's like, we shouldn't see a weapon from the 1300s with armor from the 1500s, but we still see it. Yeah.
When does the AC become this example you just gave? Now,
Yep.
when does AC step in and say you can't fight because you have the wrong sword that matches your armor? When, let's say, you flew to Poland to fight and you didn't have the right documentation, now you're out the money and you're got a very real barrier versus some documentation which is taken away from the sport now.
Right. So a couple things on that. Number one, all your equipment should be certified, before you take off on your plane. So, for example, I have my armor. I got my pictures taken of it. I submitted it in my profile. It was reviewed and approved. Thumbs up. I'm good. So that was an easy thing for me to just get that captured, submitted, and then AC has signed off on it, and I'm good to go. So when you show up to the event, they're going to eyeball it in person, of course, and make sure that they are happy with the way things look in person, and make sure they're consistent with the photos that you've already submitted. I think that's an okay thing to have happen, as long as what you submitted matches what you're bringing to the table. So, I mean, and that's just being responsible. If you have changes that you need to make, just following through and updating your pictures and getting it reapproved. That's being a prepared fighter, submitting your kit ahead of time. There shouldn't be a surprise when you show up. They should be able to scan your QR code, which everyone has now, and bring up your profile. There's the pictures of your armor. Is the pictures on the website that are approved matching the stuff that you see in front of you? And if not, then that's where the mismatch occurs. And that's what we shouldn't have happen. And that's just a, bureaucracy paperwork thing.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about line marshals. I got a heavy hitter question maybe here.
Yep.
There was specifically at Carnage, I've talked to maybe 60 fighters and maybe 10 captains about the same issue that happened at Carnage. That when we're got the weapon around the neck, it's not under the helmet. That's the thing here. It's not under the lip. So many times at Carnage, we reviewed. This has been in a bunch of group chats, a bunch of video reviews. It is at this particular Carnage, it was an extremely big martial area error that was constantly happening that changed the outcomes of fights because of this martial area. What can be done to address such a big mishap that's changing the outcome of fights, that it should be the fighters deciding rather than the marshals?
Right. So a couple of things. Number one, teams have your appeals at the event. It should definitely be something like that, where the fighters are forced to take a knee because of an illegal action, or given a yellow card after the fact because of a specific action. You can appeal that, and you should appeal that if you have video evidence. And we can also pull it from the live stream at Carnage, where they have the live stream. We did that for many other appeals also. So use your appeal for that, so that you can get that issue resolved through a review. Then the fight would be reset and refought. There The the back of the neck. So was this on the back side or front of the neck?
It was basically in the, let's say, 15 videos that I saw in these chats about um, this particular issue, that it was from all kinds of angles. And people are, of course, cherry picking the videos, but all of them were for various different angles, and never one of them, because they're cherry picked videos, was someone actually illegally doing the action. It was always a mismatch from, or an error from the marshal.
So that's also where, if you can share some of that with me, I can always go and work with the marshal on a little education and make sure that that's something that we can address. In the heat of the moment, especially with newer marshals, they may see a haft going towards the neck and assume the worst. I even saw that at Idaho. There was one of our newer marshals saw that and was like, oh my God, that haft on the neck, half on the neck. And then the fighter immediately twisted it so it was across the shoulder and not on the neck. And it's like, okay, that's not an illegal action now. Maybe they came in hot, they hit the helmet, it slid down, and then they twisted it to react to make it so that it wasn't illegal. There would be, in my mind, if that was the action and then that was the reaction by the fighter, that's not an illegal action. That's, they're readjusting, they come in, they find that they may be slipping down. Instead of applying more pressure, they release the pressure, reassess, and then take the action. So that's perfectly acceptable. No contact with the fighter. I would not do anything. If it went over and went under the edge of the helmet, and then force was applied, that's when I would say, watch the haft. And I would give a verbal warning to the fighter at that time. And if they didn't correct it, then I would break it and reset the haft so that it's outside of the helmet and just continue the fight. I would not sit anybody.
I think this is the main complaint, is that there was no warnings given, and it was just sit, sit, sit.
Okay, yeah, so that's a little excessive. And this is something that I mentioned to all the fighters, all the marshals actually in Idaho right before we started the fight was, hey, remember, one of our jobs here is to affect the fight as little as possible. So our job isn't to affect the outcome. It's to be there for safety and to make sure that everyone else is there for safety. So we're there to make sure that safety is enforced. We are also there to be arbitrators of the rules, but honestly, the number of times I sat someone in the last few fights, last few tournaments, is minimal, because in general there is no need to. The fights resolve themselves. I don't see a lot of illegal actions. Yellow cards are assessed afterwards as necessary, but I don't change the outcome of the fight. Exception would be, let's say a fighter was, half was under the helmet, clearly. Fighter was sat down. I would stand up the fighter that was put down with illegal action as long as they were able to, and continue the fight, assessing the yellow card after to the fighter that performed the illegal action. That's the way I would handle that.
When we're talking about marshaling, we're talking about what goes into a good line marshal. When do you know a line marshal is ready to be a field marshal? And what is the characteristics that make an exceptional field marshal?
So I'll start with the last part and I'll go back to the first part. So an exceptional field marshal has good field awareness. They have a good understanding of the rules. They have a good, at their brains fingertips, they have all the key rule situations ready to go for whatever happens. Haft under the armor, intentionally removing armor, grabbing the blade of a weapon, having the choking up on the axe head and making a swing, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that we have to watch for and keep track of during a fight. They have to show that they can be mobile. They can pay attention to their own safety and the safety of the fighters. They have to be ready to give it a shot. And trust me, when I put Dallas and Nick in both, and they're my two kind of my little proteges here on the West Coast, both of them were sweating bullets after their first time on the field. They've both grown into the role well, but their first time out, they were about ready to have a coronary after one round out there on the field because it was unknown. It was a new situation. They were going in, not blind because they had been watching from the outside, but they had been they hadn't actually been on the field yet. So going from the outside of the ring to the inside is a big shift. So you have to be, watching for your safety, watch mobility, watch the other fighters. Don't get in the way of the fighters. We have a lot of little slides, and you were at my training, so you saw some of the positioning things that we talked about, making sure that the fighters always have a runway to get to the rest of the fights, and the marshals aren't in that runway, that we always have our back to the rail and we don't position ourselves in a corner. Those are some of the keys, but there's a lot more to it than that, and it just takes practice and time, repetition, like anything. Build that muscle memory.
You talked about your two proteges. We're blessed over here to have some of my favorite marshals, not only in their what I call their fairness, but in terms of the quality of guys that they are.
Yeah.
You've been around. You talk about yourself like you're this ancient being, which you might be,
Yes.
but you're the Night Marshal. You've been the Night Marshal a while. You probably still will remain to be the Night Marshal for the U.S. But I'm sure you might think about this. What has been your big impact? What will be your legacy? And who's going to either change the game in terms of your style of impact, or who's going to hone the game?
Right. So just to kind of reiterate your point there, I've been Night Marshal now in the U.S. for 11 years. Yeah, I ain't going nowhere anytime soon, so don't you worry about that. However, I am here to elevate the game, to continue to grow and watch my team of marshals grow and strive with me. We got a good foundational group. I'm very happy with the trainees that we've received. I'm very happy with the level of engagement from some folks. We've had people fly coast to coast just to get experience and travel and get an opportunity to work with me and work with others and to get additional practice. One of the things that Buhurt International Marshals pride themselves on is our level of professionalism. And that I want to be my legacy. We have a professional squad of marshals who are well trained and ready for any situation that they can jump in and handle it and take care of things. I have every confidence that we will have probably 2 or 3 new international marshals in the U.S. before the end of the calendar year. And this will be because of their hard work and earning that opportunity. And that's something that doesn't come easy. And we still have less than 10 in the U.S. So I'm hoping that we'll get to maybe get to 20 by 2 or 3 years from now. But I hope that we're able to add about 3 in this calendar year. But we should also be adding another probably 15 or so regional marshals. We just added 3 this year so far, and we're halfway through the year. But there were actually, let me take that back. We added 3 just after Siege, so that was a big jump. And there was a couple more before that. I think we've probably added almost 10 for the calendar year, and that's a nice little jump in the regional marshal incremental growth. What's more, an area that I want to see grow more is getting people up to the next level of conference. And that's going to be, that takes a lot more work, takes a lot more dedication and willpower on the marshal side. You have to, once you get that first accolade, you got to keep pushing now. And you got to really work towards that second one. The second one is harder to get than the first one. The first one, there's a punch list. You just check all the boxes and show some desire and you're in. The second one, you have to show knowledge and application as well as desire. So that becomes another barrier you have to bring.
Okay. What are the characteristics we talked about? Line marshal to field marshal. Field marshal, a guy that you could say he's going to do his duels, his pro fights, his uh, sword and buckler reffing. Now, we're looking at what are the characteristics that take him or her from that level to it's time to push this person to get to conference marshal.
So in general, I try to, when people go for the regional marshal certification, I want them to spend some time on the field. So I want them to actually have an opportunity to be a field marshal. So that's the beginning of that opportunity for them to step into that next role. As a conference marshal, I expect them to be in the center of the field, being the night marshal on the field in those fights. So they should be comfortable in working in any of the three positions. They should be comfortable working effectively as a line marshal, field marshal, and night marshal. That's, for me, that's the bar to be a conference marshal. You need to be able to run an event, run the list. I should be able to look over at you like I do with Dallas and say, hey, I need you to take care of this for me. I need you to run the arena while I go get Jill's armor. And Dallas was up to the task and jumped in there and was very happy to do it. And again, when I got back, everyone was still waiting for me anyways.
Shout out my boy Dallas.
Yeah. Yep.
We love him up here.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that is what's required for the conference level. You need to show that aptitude and that ability, and that means you're at the next level. You are controlling the fights. One of the things a lot of the fighters may not realize is, as the head marshal, the night marshal on the field, you are actually marshaling your troops. Your troops are the marshals. You're making sure your marshals are in the position that they're supposed to be in. You're directing the field marshals. You're directing the line marshals, and you're making sure everybody is right where they should be for the fight. Before you start the fight, you make sure visually that they're all where they need to be, and then that everyone's aligned and ready to go. Afterwards, you assess the cards, you find out the score, you communicate that to the secretary, etc. Those are absolute requirements as the night marshal. You have to be able to do all those communication things, and then rinse, repeat, get ready, do it again, and on a rapid basis, right? No fighter likes to sit around and wait for the marshals to scratch their head and figure out what the hell's going on, right? You want it to be crisp and clean. That's what another thing that I provide is like, my guys are trained that way. This is the way we operate. There's no time for fuckery, no time for bullshit. We'll do that later, but not in the field.
So I've seen that there may be both beginning and ending your steel fighting career with marshaling. There's a stigma against this. Some of the fighters, I've seen fighters leave because of injury or because of drama, or at least heard about it. Why is there such a stigma with going from I'm aging out or I'm careering out of fighting, and not going to marshaling? Unless I'm wrong about having heard the stigma, is there a lot of fighters that go from fighting to marshaling?
So there, and again, I told you the origin story of this, that, hey, if you are we are the marshals, bring us your sick and you're old and you're tired. We don't like that. I mean, realistically, that's not going to get you the best marshals. We need people that are fit and full of energy, ready to learn, ready to absorb, and ready to work hard. However, absolutely, I've definitely in more recent years seen more fighters transition to become marshals. Andrew Barron, good example. We have Carly Winquist on the East Coast. We have Xander from Pale Horse. He's a regional marshal. Did you know that? Regionally certified marshal. So these are fighters who have taken the time to learn the rules, perform the necessary punch list items to become a regionally certified marshal, and they take it seriously. And they do a really good job. Having that fighter background, as we talked about earlier, it's a good step up. It's a good step into being a good marshal. I wish more marshals, more fighters who are getting to the end of their career would consider being a marshal. There's always ones who toy around with it, or they threaten it and then they disappear. I would love to see more of them become marshals and help out in that area. I could use their expertise. The league and the sport could use their expertise and knowledge. And what it comes down to, though, is again what I mentioned earlier, is professionalism. I want people who are going to be professional about it. I want people who are serious about it. It's not just hey, whatever. My armor's on order. I'm going to marshal while I'm waiting. The minute their armor shows up, you never see them again. I've seen some of those people, and that's not really helping grow the sport by giving them 6 months to a year of training and then have them kind of disappear. And I'd rather have somebody who's going to hang out and be there for years, which is what it takes to get to the international level certification, right? So,
Professionalism.
Yep.
We're priding ourselves on our professional, our our objective marshals, whether at home or away. How did the professionalism level that we have now develop? How did it come about? Did you push it? Is it just people were selecting? Is it a training program? How did we get the professionalism level we have now?
Right. That's a great question. And I think there's multiple factors there. So I think in general, there's always been a push to make it more professional and to make it more robust. I think we turned that corner probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago, where it was recognized as a professional organization, professional people who took it seriously. But the group of marshals at that time was very small. It has now grown significantly. And when I bring people in, I just beat the drum that this is a professional group. This is a professional organization. There's no time for anything beyond that. If you don't want that, go get your popcorn and sit in the stands, buddy. There's lots of room up there for you. But I repeat it and instill it into everyone I train with. We have, as an international martial level, we have a lot of professionalism in the international Buhurt international martial community as well. So I think that helps. The guys that are doing this in Australia, in France, in Germany, and in Poland, they take it very seriously. They're very professional. They they know how to cut loose and have fun when it's appropriate and when it's the right time. But on the field, it's business, and we execute it as such. From the beginning, I think HMB was always really good about that. They kept it very serious and very focused. And we've carried that forward into the new Buhurt International World.
Let's talk a little bit about problematic fighters.
Yeah.
Fighters that yell at Marshall over what they see as very clear rules that the marshals are getting wrong, Joe. We just discussed Andrew Barron. Me and Barron, I don't think there's probably anyone in the world that has as much opportunity as me and Barron to yell at you.
Yeah.
We've had our spats, which I'd say shows your professionalism and your objective nature, because you're buddies with me and Barron, and you yell at us right back on the field.
Yeah.
When it comes to, we have rules disagreements. I take my set. I take my yelling at. I get my 45-minute lecture after. Barron gets his lecture. He understands the error of his ways. We all have lunch. We have dinner together. We continue to be solid friends and send each other memes. What developed you into the type of person, the type of marshal, or was it the nature of the sport that pushed you this way, where you have skills to deal with problematic or emotional or new people or people who just get upset in the sport when you're applying the rules and it applies to them in a way that they don't like?
Right. There's a lot of the training I've received on conflict resolution actually from work, and from my professional industry. That's a big part of what's got me to be able to get past some of that stuff also. How to deal with, I've been a manager of teams, I've been a director of different groups. In those roles, you're expected to have a high level of professionalism and also be able to work with people you don't like. That's one thing and this is one I'm gonna, yeah, or people that you really like. But this is one thing I'm going to underscore a little bit is the professionalism. I have no space for unprofessional marshals. I have no space for people who are going to be biased. You mentioned the impartiality of the marshal squad. We are part of a team. You guys are part of a team. You're the Bears, you're the this, you're the whatever. You guys have your own teams. Then the marshals are a team, and we represent our team on the field for the betterment of the sport. But we are not representatives of, hey, I'm a marshal, but I work or I train with URSAs. Hey, I'm a marshal, but I train with Order of Gauntlet of Rose or whatever. No, you are a marshal, period. When you're wearing that yellow, you're mine. You're my team. And that's it. So there should be no bias towards or from anyone else on the field. And I have been challenged with that in a few situations where people have said, well, I don't want to have this marshal working with me. There was one situation in 2015, going back, where I was sat down by the Russian marshals because Team USA came on the field. And they told me that I should sit down because I was American. And the one marshal sat me down and said, okay, you just sit down because it's, US is coming out. You can just watch this one and whatever. And then after they saw me work the field with everything else, it was the next round. This is the finals for the fives. And I was, the junior marshal on the field, but I was working on the field in 2015 for Battle of Nations on the fives finals. And they said, the US is back out, but we seen how you work. We'll trust you to be out here. You can, you're independent, you're, impartial, come out and you can be a marshal on the field. So I was able to show them that through professionalism, my impartiality is going to be above my, country loyalty or team loyalty or whatever. I'm here for the sport. I'm here for the rules. I'm not here for helping my team cheat and win. Right. That's what I expect out of all my marshals always. And that's something that I'm very passionate about.
So I think across many sports, and I'm talking mostly about the Olympic level sports, where we compete internationally quite often, judo, fencing, even rowing, of course, swimming, tennis. US gets a rough rap. We, aren't seen well in the world. I have found through all my travels, my years in the national team, that I'm defying expectations. I'm so much different than they expected me to be. I'm way more polite. I'm way more sociable. I'm way friendlier than they expected. Do you feel like this is been applied to you and your journey as marshal? Were you defying expectations of what an American is going to be?
Yeah, so I understand where you're coming from. I know that in the beginning, the U.S. was told multiple times, why are you here? You're not, you don't have a European history. Why are you here? And then we have to remind everyone, well, we're a country of immigrants. We're all, a lot of us are European, have European heritage. And if you go back, yeah, we're this and that. And, we have the heritage of the countries that we're coming to fight against. And we can, represent it just as well as the Spanish, the French, the, Italians, whoever, no problem. So they gave us a little of a rough ride in the beginning on that. One of my favorite little stories from the Wayback Machine that's actually pleasant is in the 2012 adventures to Poland, the U.S. team would actually they ran out on the field and they went up and shook hands or gave hugs to all the fighters on the other team that they were fighting against before the fight started. This is something we do today. We even now with some of the teams, we'll get up there and hug it out.
There's still some France involved.
Yeah.
No hugging. There's no time for hugging.
Yeah. So hey, I don't, I like it. I'm good with it. I never, or rarely shut that down because it's important and I love it. That's one thing I like. That was one of the things that broke the ice with the Europeans when the Americans just, blindly went out, gave everyone a big hug and said, "Hey man, thanks for fighting against me. I'm looking forward to having a beer with you later. This is great. Thanks for being here. Let's fight." Showing that we had a little bit of humility and a little bit of, we're real people, not just, coming out there to try to be badasses or whatever, but we're also trying to just, be normal guys having a good time. And that is what the Europeans originally liked about us. That's the one thing that they picked up from us, and now they will do it sometimes. But this never happened before 2012 when the U.S. team brought that to the big international tournaments. And even now, whenever like Poland team or a few others, they will go out there and they'll go up to the U.S. team and give them hugs and hang out and, before the fight and then get into position and have at it. But they love the camaraderie piece that we brought to the table. There were disagreements and things went, negative from there in some areas and then have been repaired since. But I think the U.S. team now is well regarded. The U.S. contingent, as a marshal from the U.S., I think expectations are always high that I was going to be, I was initially that there was thoughts about being biased and there was thoughts about, just not getting the experience. Having now been doing this for over 11 years, I can put both of those to rest and move on to other things. Having attended now multiple international tournaments and showing my professionalism and showing my skill level, those questions have put themselves to bed, and now we can get on to bigger, better things.
So we fight mostly under BI, correct?
Yep.
So
I only marshal under BI, so yes.
There is AMCF, IMCF. There's a bunch of different leagues. I'm not sure. I'm not even aware of how many there are, at least in the U.S. Why are there so many different leagues? What's going on with them? Is there a hierarchy of leagues? Why do you only marshal for the one?
Okay, so a couple of things. So the IMCF is a splinter group off of what was the old HMB that happened in 2015 when a bunch of Western Europeans thought that, we can do this without Russia. So we're going to do it without Russia. And they created IMCF. There was an incident in the end of the Ogmort tournament between Ukraine and I think it was between Ukraine and Russia where there was some crazy malfeasance on the field or at the edge of the field that caused a lot of the fighters to really question the people from the organization screwing with the results directly. Literally, there was a guy reaching through the fence, one of the organizers, and holding one of his fighters up by the belt. And this is all on video and documented, but it changed the outcome of the fight and caused all kinds of problems. The U.S. folks decided that they didn't want to be a part of that anymore, and they broke off and participated in IMCF. That's why they went to Belmonte in 2014 in mass with a large group of Americans, and they basically told HMB to go pound sand, and they sent the poor little guys who got their asses beat in 2014. So that was the splinter group of from HMB, IMCF. In the United States, there was a group that was formed called AMCF that was formed for fighter support more than anything. It was to help build an organization that would support the fighters, by the fighters, and that's what the origins of it were. I was actually a board member for multiple years from the AMCF. I was there, I think, 2018 through 2020. And I was supporting that organization, which at the time was really, and still is officially, nonpartisan. They support whoever. And even to this day, I'm one of the few people who posts Buhurt International things onto the AMCF page, because technically AMCF is a nonpartisan American organization. They have since become the national organization for IMCF in the US, but that's not how they started. So that's a fairly recent development. There's other leagues too that have come and gone, and old leagues that started this Buhurt journey that have exploded under their own weight and ineptitude, etc. And we are today where we are, basically formed around the two larger international organizations.
Okay, so a little bit branch off of the question here. There's, these different leagues. You're only doing BI. There's also, let's say, AMMA. There's also Golden Ring. There's all these smaller fight promotions. Do you marshal there?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you just stay with your BI tournaments?
Well, so interestingly enough, Golden Ring is a BI tournament. They have embraced the BI rules. I do usually attend the Golden Ring events when they have two different kinds of Golden Rings. They have the Crucible, and then they have the full Golden Ring event. The Golden Ring one is usually a pro fight series, and that's the one I usually attend and happily support. Me and Jay, who runs that, are friends, and I will be very happy to support him on his endeavors, because also they use the BI rules. And I helped him make sure that he kind of went that direction for multiple reasons. And because of that, I'm happy to help. For AMMA, I know Mickey Gallus very well. Back in the day, in the throes of the latter part of COVID, him and I met in Nashville and talked about getting marshals for his tournaments and stuff. Things were delayed and kind of still sticky because of COVID. We had plans for doing a marshal training session in Nashville in, I think it was around St. Patrick's Day in 2020 or 2021, and that all fell apart because COVID was spiking, and different things were put into place and events had to be canceled. So I was not able to set that up with him. Instead, he kind of went his own way with his rule set and decided to get his own martial stuff and his own level of, what he allowed as far as armor and regulations and that stuff. And I know that he's a lot more open to different kinds of armor and weapons and whatever. And I wish him well. He's a good guy. I actually first met him at a training seminar in Washington, I think in 2020, either 2020 or 2021, where he was just some dude that rolled up in a van and was here for the training seminar. And me and him we actually got paired up as partners doing throws. So I got to pick his little ass up and throw him all over the place. That was fun. So he had a lot more trouble picking me up. Trust me.
So there's these different leagues, there's these different promotions. Where do you see Buhurt going in terms of tournaments and leagues? And where do you see it going in terms of fight promotions and these different organizations that are trying to make money from the sport? Where do you see it going, and where would you ideally like it to go?
Right. So that's a bunch of big questions there. So I love the way things are growing right now. I can tell you that the growth, we're in a growth phase still, absolutely. the number of new members we're getting on the Medieval Combat USA site every month is crazy and amazing. And just, as far as members, let alone the clubs that aren't members and the clubs that are growing of, friend of a friend who saw their buddy, getting hit with a sword and thought it was awesome and decided to go get involved. It's getting to the point where it's getting a momentum of its own, which is awesome. New clubs are springing up all over the place. New teams are appearing here and there. We have a local thing here in San Diego in Escondido that Ordo is helping to support. It's at a little place called Barley and Sword.
Brand new team, Ordo.
Yeah, with a brand new event that Ordo is supporting. But they have a new venue, right? So we have our own little brewery now, just like you guys do in Sanger. But they're happy to have us out there every month or every couple months, and to do a night fight day. And these opportunities are popping up everywhere. I see a lot of these events posted on Facebook and other places of events just in Ohio and Colorado and wherever of night fight night or whatever at the local brewery. Bring your dollars to give to the Knights or whatever, and we'll have free beers or different things, just venue opportunities. So the growth is happening. The growth potential is getting to a very large curve, which I love seeing. So I think it's only going to get bigger. I'm happy to see all these little night fights and brewery brawls and all that. I want to see more large scale tournaments. So we have Carolina Carnage, we have Siege, we have Ventura, which is a little smaller, but we can grow that. And we also have like California Classic, which is in Fresno. There's some good ones that are West Coast also, but there's other ones that we can grow. This weekend, there's one in Springfield, Missouri, which I went to last year. I was supposed to go to this year. It's getting a little too close to Romania for me. I got to pack up and head out. But that's a good event that's been growing year over year. I think they're on their third year or fourth year now. And it's getting people coming in from Texas, from Minnesota, from all over the Midwest. And that's an up-and-coming event that I would say should be on people's radars for something to have in the Midwest. That's a good opportunity there. I know there's a couple Minnesota events that they do every year that also are good possible opportunities. So I want to see some larger scale events. That's what I want to see more of. I think that's the growth area that if I could influence and suggest, I'd like to see more opportunities in that area, and continue the little guys, continue all these demo events. But as we get more of these teams that are going to be itching for a larger level of compete, there's an opportunity.
There's a thing that I have been calling the Rockies divide, where it's kind of like the East Coasters do the East Coasters thing, the West Coasters, we do our thing. Is that good? Is it making fierce competitions between the teams in the tournaments? Is it holding the sport back for Americans, especially when we go overseas? Does it miss opportunities, or does it make us have stronger strongholds? What do you think if there is the divide of the Rockies, what does that impact the sport?
I think it's a real thing. So I think the West Coast is pretty strong. We have some really good teams. We have a great development path, and a trending up cycle that we're in, which I love to see. The Midwest is kind of a grab bag. There's some big teams. There's some growth. There's teams in of all places like Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, whatever, that are up and coming and doing well, and large numbers of members and participation, and they're doing fairly well. But it's hard to get them to events out of their region. It's a long drive from Oklahoma to the West Coast, and a long drive from there to the East Coast too. So that's part of the reason why it's good for us to try to get more events across multiple regions. For the East Coast folks, honestly, I usually do like 2 events a year on the East Coast only, and it's just because there haven't been that many that I've been invited to or had the opportunity to attend to time wise. Usually it's Carnage, and then I last year did Blood and Suds. I might be doing that again this year in October. We'll see. But that one was in Maryland, and it was a nice event. We actually had White Company come across the pond and fight, and that
again,
was
shout out for the
yeah.
4th time on this podcast.
Yeah.
Shout out Daniel Winters.
There we go. Have you interviewed him yet?
He's coming up. I'm not sure if I'm going to get him before or after Romania.
Okay.
He's a busy boy, as far as I'm aware, but he comes extremely highly recommended, and I'm really excited to interview him. I think
Good.
in terms of fairness, because we will be fighting him, that I'll probably get him after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably good, and you guys can compare bruises and notes. So
yeah.
So I did give you Daniel Winters also. I'm sure other people did too, but I know I've added him to my my wish list for you. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Almost everyone that recommended people, because it was so crossed, that became very clear who I should interview. The only person that I'm probably not going to get, just because he's not big on social media, he's hard to get a hold of, is Skinner.
Okay.
Of the 11 people I have had and lined up, he's the only one that I just haven't gotten a hold of.
You don't have like the judo bat phone where you can call him on?
No, I actually don't think that he's a black belt. So he's not in, and I don't think he'd be in like the coaching connection groups that I'm in. Yeah, I don't have a way to channel through judo to find him, at least not that I know of. Though I was never that connected in judo. I just went to my tournaments and kind of did my thing, you know.
Yeah. I'll talk to you afterwards about some ways to get a hold of him, I think.
Sounds good. So our sport is having a big explosion right now, from what I've seen. I've talked to a number of captains, a number of the guys with fame. Everyone's got new guys. Ordo, Vagabonds, Kenyas, Barbarians, they all have 2 teams plus. They've got enough guys to build a 12s team, which is 20-man roster plus. No problem. They got them coming to every practice. What are the barriers, and how do we get over those barriers of having so many new people in the sport all at once?
So a couple things. The first thing is that's exciting, and I think one of the good things is usually these established teams or semi-established teams have a lot of spare armor, spare equipment, spare gear that people can use to get started. And that's really the barrier to entry is, your fitness level, sure, but it's also, what gear are you going to wear? How can you get out there and start fighting? If you can quickly get into armor, I think the appetite grows. If it takes a longer time to get into gear and get into armor, I think some people get frustrated and move on to other things, or just, they become marshals. Horrible. But seriously, I think if having lots of gear available, this is one thing I've always talked about. My kids did ice hockey growing up, and the different levels of sports, like high intensity sports, are places we should be picking people from, picking them up when they're like 18, and get them a taste of the fun that is Buhurt, and starting them at that point. I think that's something that we've started to do more of. There's the youth league that's starting now in MCU, and that's something that I have actually thought about, like working on getting a little youth team together and start teaching them from 16 up or whatever, and teaching them how to do some little tricks and learn some stuff early, and get ready to, when they turn 18, they'll be monsters. Might as well start farming them young, man. Get them ready to go. I think the keeping them interested is giving them opportunities to fight, giving them opportunities to show their skills, having the events, having those matches that are available easily within their locale, within a little bit larger geographic region, and then maybe one or two that they travel to. But you got to have a little bit of a circuit that's available to people to go to, so they're not just fighting the same guys over and over again. They can stretch out a little bit and go fight the team from two towns over, and they'll get a whole another level of fighting, new skills, new things to try, new ways that they get beat, etc. Right?
I've fought soldados 3 times, and I'm over it.
Yeah. I thought you liked.
Shout out, Brandon McKay. I had a full year where he was out with injury and with whatever. A full year. Even his personality is similar to mine. The year I was waiting for my armor to arrive, I got his. Everything, our sizing is completely the same, except for his arms are, he got bigger biceps than mine, which is weird. But I was blessed with having a kit to use almost a whole year. I did all the maintenance, and I'm still having offered to him to basically do the unlimited maintenance for him. He's so gracious, so generous with me. I really appreciate. I got an extra year of training waiting for my armor because of him.
That's awesome.
Buhurt has its culture. We have our American culture, our American way. You're adding your professionalism to the American culture. You develop the professionalism. Let's talk about Buhurt as a whole, away from marshaling per se. What is the way that is the current Buhurt culture and the standard, and what's accepted and what's not accepted? As we grow and the culture gets influenced by new people coming in, what should go, what should stay in the current state of the way that we conduct ourselves in the sport as we move forward?
Right. So I think the trend that I've seen lately, which I really appreciate, and this is the reason why the level of compete is increased a lot, is people take fitness seriously. They take working out and training seriously. In the old days, we had a lot of the weekend warrior culture that they thought they could be good enough if they just get out there every weekend and they put on their armor once in a while and they would be able to be competitive. Back in the day, that might have been the case, not anymore. And the reason why is because people like you, Greg, who get your ass up at 5 a.m. and go do your cardio maxing. I've been watching your videos.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And that's that is the level of compete that we need to have in the sport. That's where people like you and others who take fitness and the working out seriously push things to the next level. And that's where the sport is growing too. The people who are going to be getting those gold medals and working out are the people who take the fitness journey and the aspects around that seriously. The training needs to be not just putting on your armor once a week, but doing all the other bits, the cardio, the weights, the plyometrics or whatever you need to get your body ready for the impact. There's a lot of strategy drills you can do, things like that. And this is one of the items that you and I got in the little chats earlier. But I think that one thing that's can go is the imaginary positioning. I think sometimes you start in a position, but that never lasts, right? You start on the rail, you start in the center or whatever. Yeah, well, whatever. I think it's more working in team cohesion, team groups. And this is, again, I know ice hockey a bit because of my kids playing for up through, my son played college hockey. And there's the positioning you learn there. It's all based on your scenarios, based on where you're at. It's not based on, you don't start off looking at the ice and saying, okay, well, I'm going to go down here and skate to the goal. No, you look at where the others are, the other people you're going up against. Where's the puck? Where are the different action points, the contingency points, etc.? How do you form up with your teammates, create a little triangle, and get things done? You can do the exact same things in Buhurt. You can form up these little kill squads and go back and forth and do things together as a team, as a unit, without necessarily having these plays. I think the concept of plays is a little bit overblown, and the reality is more of situational knowledge and situational execution. The high level fighters that I see internationally are, they don't always stick to a playbook. They don't always stick to a line. They react to the environment that they're given, and they excel at creating chaos. And then when chaos appears, taking full advantage of that.
My take on this would be that the plays are actually underdeveloped and overemphasized. So I think that there's still yet quite a few modes of thinking that the arrangements of five can be, and the roles that are illusionary.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we don't know what kid is going to come into the sport and rethink the way that we're doing
Right.
these plays. And I think that newer fighters or newer teams, newer captains rely too much on the plays, especially if they have the playbook, thinking that the plays are going to be the answer, the counter, that rather than your fighter IQ or your situational awareness.
Right. And I would absolutely concur with that. I think the reliance on fixed plays is baloney, and it's more of a situational awareness. And then maybe you can put together little plays, but I think it's a 1, 2, 3 maneuvers, and then reassess, and then do 1, 2, 3 maneuvers, and go from there. I know you've met and chatted with Andrew McCabe, but he's
I had my longest chat so far by a ways was with McCabe.
Yeah. And he is a demon in this area. So he will situationally, run up and down the rail. His guys are holding guys to the rail. He'll come up and blast them from behind. Some guy will maybe try to come up behind him. He'll pivot, throw him over his shoulder, go to the next guy and start hacking him down. And he's, running around like a crazy guy with an axe, because he is. And, and he makes shit happen. But a lot of times, his guy's job is to hold people for Andrew to destroy. And it's, they tee him up and he knocks them out. And that's the way it works. That works with that team. That may not work with every team. And they have the players and the plays to do that, established within their team. But also they're very dynamic individuals. There's situations where one time I saw Andrew wasn't running like his normal self. And I was like, what? I went to him afterwards, like, hey, you good, bud? Everything all right? And he's like, yeah, I was trying something different. And he's like, I don't think I'll try that again because it was not as successful. He, tried to slow down a little bit and do things a little differently. And his old style was what set him apart. And I think he recognizes that after trying a few experiments there.
I think a lot of this cast I'm doing, I'm just going to call it a podcast. I guess that's what it is. I accidentally started a podcast.
Good job.
We've been talking about greatness quite a bit. I don't think that there is a fighter, that there is a marshal out there that has had more up close and personal view of greatness going down there in the moment, maybe Vitaly. But in your view, what's the greatest thing you've seen in the list? The greatest athletic performance, the greatest showmanship of their skills, or the greatest comeback, the greatest individual performance? What's the thing that shines for you that overall the years you've been?
Right. I can think of a few, but in general, I like it when we see someone flying around doing multiple kills. I like seeing dynamic teams, dynamic action in the ring. People come out explosively and just destroy a team. There was a fight where Ordo, I think it was two Fresnos ago, Baron was fighting with Ordo, and he like literally yelled at someone saying, "Take a knee," and the guy was like, "Yes, sir." Took a knee, didn't even touch him. He just like, "Take a knee," and he was like yelling at him. He was so like incensed and angry, and he just knocked two other guys down. He went up and said, "Take a knee, or I'm going to destroy you." And the guy's like, "Yep, yep, done."
I believe this happened at Potato Mash last year.
Um, I'm not sure. It might have been. It might have been. But yeah, he literally like, basically, um, psyched the guy out to the point where he just like folded up like an old tent and was like, "Yep, I'm done." That was impressive. I've also seen where people have taken a like a 2-on-3 or a 2-on-5 situation and turned that to a victory. It's happened before where two big fighters, two guys that are excessively good. I think Johnny Porter was in this group one time where he was running around and it was a 2-on-5. The rest of his guys got creamed in the corner, and now he had to take out his weight in people. So he did, and he just ran around like a demon, just ripping people down and destroying them, getting them to two guys using one guy against the other to hide himself behind one of his opponents, dropping the guy, grabbing the next guy, doing the same thing, and it just a domino effect of bringing it back to victory eventually. So, and that was a hard fought fight. I don't know exactly which one it was specifically, but a few of those situations, of course, Johnny's involved in it, but there's been others.
Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny's Johnny. Yeah, one of the questions you sent me early for me to look at, you asked about what team to watch out for, what team that is a up and coming. So the team in Denmark, that's the ones. Yeah.
What makes the Iron Wolves?
Yeah, not Iron Wolves. I think Iron Wolves is Northern England.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember their name exactly, but it's the team in Denmark. They recently went to an event. They fought against White Company in Poland, and they were able to beat a White Company in Poland.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was White Company with Johnny and a few other guest stars on there. So that was pretty amazing. So I think that's the team I would watch right now because they're not a cherry pick team. They're organic. They're grown up together. These guys have all worked together to get to the skill level. They have some amazing teachers who are longtime Buhurt people. I think that's the team I would watch. They're going to be the next White Company in my mind.
What do you think prepares fighters like McCabe, like Johnny, like Joseph Grant, like AKD, like Brett Skinner? What prepares them to make these crazy comebacks, these crazy plays to both hone and reinvent the sport? What is their preparation? What's in their special sauce that make them so much different than a lot of fighters?
That's a wonderful question. I'll give you my take, of course, but I don't know that I can exactly put my finger on it. But number one is they have a high fitness level, right? They're no slouches. They can go. Their cardio is good. They got breath. They got strength. They're ready to go. They're not going to just fold up because they're tired. They have a high level of compete and drive. They're there to win. They're not there to they're not there to show up and have a good time. They're there to win first and have a good time, but in that order. So they have a high level of expectation on themselves. They expect greatness out of themselves, and then they deliver it. I think there's a mental game. Obviously, you have to be mentally prepared for victory. You have to sacrifice to get there. You have to do the work, get up at 5, live through the suck to get to the good stuff on the other side. And that's a lot of commitment that's required also. And then you're just, when you're in the moment, it's execution, getting it done, not forgetting why you're there, and sticking with it.
Question here in the forum.
Oh, I got one for you.
Go ahead.
Ready? Favorite anime?
Favorite anime, Joe?
It's on your list, man. It's a fair question.
Let's do that one right at the end.
Okay.
But I want to kind of go up over like the fun. People like those type of questions just about yourself
Okay.
as the bonuses, I think.
All right.
Oh, okay. And okay, so we talked about what's the greatest thing you've seen inside the list. What's something that really surprised you and is something that you saw outside the list that you thought was the best thing a fighter has done that, or maybe impacted the sport for the better?
There are many examples. I think when teams are um, more collaborative, and they're, after they've won the big thing. So this is going to be like, this is not intended to increase your ego or anything, but when you guys at Carnage went and shared your accolades with the team, I think I can't remember which team it was that you guys were.
Very nice.
Barbarians. Yeah, I think that was a great thing. That was bringing back some fun to the sport, and some brotherhood and that kind of thing. That was great. There are other examples like that over the years, but let's focus on today. That's a good way to keep other teams engaged, and, like, realize that we're all here together to have fun and win, but we're here to have fun too. And we are better by having more teams involved and more people involved and engaged, and enjoying the sport, than less. We're not here as a, absolutely exclusionary group. We want to be a bit more inclusive. We want to have a larger presence. We want to have a larger pool of fighters and teams. And by being, more outgoing, friendly, and nice people, I think we encourage that. I enjoy it when I see teams reach across, and, like, there was a video I saw recently of someone at a fight saying, "Hey, after you knock the guy down, hey, are you okay? You good?" Making sure that there's a little bit of checking on your buddies, making sure, okay, I just blasted you and destroyed you, but hey, you're not really moving okay. Are you all right? You're not unconscious or anything, right? You're okay. You can breathe. Good. Okay, I'll be back, and go fight. So there's a story I heard at Potato Mash of two guys that had their wolf ribs hooked together, and they're sitting there talking to each other while they're stuck together, while the fight's going on around them. And they're like, "Hey, yeah, you want to go and go hang out later? Yeah, let's go hang out." So they were planning, like, going out and watching the game or whatever after, and just having beers together. And by the end of it, they were like the best buds, because they were stuck together in that awkward situation for a minute or two.
Do you think so? We're talking about homegrown teams a little bit.
Yep.
And then we've talked a little bit about the super teams. Let's say there are teams that the mentality is, it's our guys. We're only going to tournament with our guys that we developed. We're going to do it our way, and we're going to dominate, win or lose, with our own guys. Then there's the teams that we want to go play, we want to go have fun, we're going to get mercs. And then there's the need to go Merc to advance your skills. What do you think about the teams that are in their own fortress and the teams that get their accolades that with their mercs, with high level fighters?
I I prefer the homegrown teams. I think that's a very much more of a long-term winning strategy. If you are developing your own talent, you will, it'll pay off eventually, as long as people stay engaged and you continue to have a good influx of skills and talents. You can hone that and bring that to fruition with time and effort. The quick route is the mercs, right? You got someone who's skilled and available. You yank them in, put them on your roster, and you filled a slot. You filled a gap, right? So that's a quick win, but isn't necessarily going to improve your team long term. It'll get you a medal on the shelf or get you a medal around your neck, but is that going to get you? Is that going to make your team better overall long term? No, not really. It's a good opportunity, and any opportunity to train is a good opportunity, but you may not be getting something that you can have sustainable to help your whole club, right? It may give you a good win, and then you're going to be it's a one-time hit, and then you're done. So that's the way I see that.
We talked about club culture, we talked about inclusivity, we talked about growing the sport. How do we get more and include the girls more and keep the girls that we have?
Right. I love having women in the sport. I love having the women's teams as part of the sport. I'd love to see more of that. I think earlier we had this kind of little bit of the conversation. I don't think I give you the full answer that I was wanting to share with you, which is we need to grow that. We need to do more recruitment in that area. And similarly to what I was saying a few minutes ago about for the men's teams, why don't we just go harvest them from these big impact sport areas? Women's hockey is a big thing. And my daughter played high level women's hockey also. And she, the girls there would have been great for Buhurt, let me tell you. They would have been just kick-ass monsters, and they would have loved it. We need to get a critical mass. If we can get like 15 girls training together, we would have such a great team, and that would blow away anything else that's in the U.S. And that's not that many, really, if you think about it. If we can get, the minimum is 8, right? But you need subs, you need people who are going to train. People may not all have their armor, etc. So what are the barriers to entry for the sport? Gear, fitness, training. If you find people that are already in sports, you got the fitness thing nailed, right? And they already understand training. They understand the fitness levels. These are the places we need to recruit from. The other, there's a lot, if you talk to a lot of the women fighters, a lot of them come from roller derby. A lot of them come from things like that, or from, I think Zog comes from field hockey. And there's a lot of other people who come from other kinds of similar sports. So there's a lot of people who have backgrounds in various kinds of contact sports. We could easily pick those people up, grow the teams, and that feeds on itself. That will get us over that critical mass and grow it. But having gear available, having people that are into fitness and understand impact sports, those 3 things, that's where we need to go to get the women more engaged.
Okay. What's next for Joe Cadieux? What's next in terms of your life, your team, your martial development?
Good question. So, currently today, I am the deputy head marshal for North America. I am the head marshal for the U.S. I am, been doing this for a long time. I continue to work with the international martial community. We have a group of the martial committee, which is the martial leadership, all the deputy marshals and head marshals for the different regions, which is North America, Europe, Asia, and the Australia, Asia, so and South America. So those are our different regions. So we all get together, we shoot the breeze and share information and talk about rule clarifications, etc. We have a whole bunch of tasks that we're working on about further clarifying or refining the rules. There's a project that may be coming up in the next 6 months about a full rewrite of the rules. It's not necessarily going to be changing the rules, it's just changing the structure on how they're presented. So this is just rewriting it documentation wise. The rules are the rules, but making it maybe more of a concise way to present the rules to people. So we're not changing the way we do things, we're just changing the way we're sharing it with you. And we're changing the way we're documenting it. There's different, we've done it all this way because this is historically how we've done it. Is that because it's the best way? No. So challenging those paradigms, that's what I'm going to be working on and working through that. Short term, I'm going to be attending Romania. So I'll be working there as one of the 3 night marshals. So I'll be on the field with you, buddy. So watch your P's and Q's, and go smash people in the face, and we'll all have a good day. And then I'll be staying in Europe for a month until Way of Honor. So I'll be attending Way of Honor in August, and then I'll be jetting home after that.
Quick side note question. I know I've been guilty of spiking players to the ground. Now, what is the definition of that? And this was only before I had read that in the rules, because reading the rules once or twice and actually understanding and knowing them all are 2 different things. Now now I understand, and I still am on the I don't ever want to injure anyone in judo, or my part of my philosophy is about my Bushido, my chivalry, is that I want to beat you completely straight up, and there's no hindrance or thought of cheating about. I had an opportunity to cheat Soldados at California Classic, and I did the cheat and then immediately undid the cheat. AKD saw it, and he wasn't going to call me out for it, but he saw me also, drop the weapon I had picked up. And my part of my thing is that I don't need to injure you. I don't need to break you to beat you. There's so many other strategies that I've got, that I'm better than having to break you to get you. If there's a rule that you could see come or go from the sport, what one rule would that be?
Interesting. That's a hard one. So, yeesh. There's now this is the problem with changing rules. You have a ripple effect, right? You change one thing, there's ripples that go out for the unintended consequences, and that's part of the what we don't want to have happen is by changing one little thing, which makes maybe a little situation better, you're causing negative repercussions or negative ripples that come out through the other areas of the rules. One that I disagree with in some respects and don't like is the ability to grab your own blade. It's a historic technique. It's something that I used to do when I trained in more of the traditional German and Italian longsword techniques. And it's something that's valid in a lot of martial arts. However, in our sport, it's not something we allow for multiple reasons, including that you can do like like we do with the halves. You put that under the edge of a helmet. Well, that's a lot sharper than a haft is. So there's a lot more of a negative area there. And if you have your hand on the blade, you're applying, a substantial amount of force potentially to a delicate area. So that's one of the considerations. The other one is in the historic half sword technique. That's designed for thrusts, and it's also designed to use that tip of the blade for slashing into unarmored areas. Obviously, we don't allow thrusting, so that was part of the reason why that was removed from the rules in 2015. But before that time, you sure could grab it, and people did. And no one that I'm aware of died from it. But that's one of the areas that I would question and think about. However, the repercussions across the board on that would be pretty vast, because you would start changing the way people would, probably see a lot more two-handed swords running around in Buhurt, because people could use it like a haft, right? And now the only way you can use it like a haft is if you clip it under your wrist and kind of cheat on that, and use that instead of your actual hand to hold the blade, and use it like a lever.
Okay. On this podcast, we are pro anime. What is your favorite anime? What anime are you rocking right now? And then I'll have a follow-up question of those.
So, anime in general. So I like animation. I'm a big fan of animation, and anime, of course, is specific style of like more of the Japanese animation is what you're or historically Japanese style of animation
is what the listeners want to know.
Right. I know. And so I'm just saying, like, I love Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny and Disney classic cartoons. However, I'll give you one that I think might be acceptable. And this is where I'm going to need you to tell me, is this anime enough for you, which is Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack. Did I not have a 2-hour discussion whether Samurai Jack and Avatar, that last Airbender, were anime or not? I did definitely have this discussion, and even I was swayed off my own point. I do think Samurai Jack is an anime. It's a great intro. Got many American kids thinking about, one, combat, two, the time we have left, and the animation and storytelling styles that are different than the good guys win, the bad guys lose, and that's just the way it is. So I think Samurai Jack is an anime. I'll take this podcast's official position. It's a controversial one that Samurai Jack is an anime.
So I love Samurai Jack. I have all the this again. People don't have these anymore, but DVDs. So the Samurai Jack DVDs all the way through season 5. Love that stuff. I used to watch it when I would travel internationally. I'd slap that in my DVD player and just watch that endlessly over and over again. Love that shit. So going back to more classic anime, ever heard of Macross and the old was it Robotech?
I have not. That's before my time, maybe, Joe.
Whoa, buddy! So this is go look in the Wayback Machine. You'll find it. It's go back to the 80s, but that was the origins. If you go back to the anime origin stories, my friend. So we used to go. There was the little thing you ever heard of called Comic-Con. So back in the 80s, you attended Comic-Con and they had a whole, anime section, which was basically pirated DVDs and the videos from Japan. And it was all about Macross and Robotech and all those things. So I used to watch that growing up in the 80s. But yeah, I watched a lot of Robotech, Macross. There was a few other random ones that I did, but these were all more of like the 1980s early on anime stuff. Akira. Have you ever heard of Akira?
Yeah, it's a huge meme. Still around, still popular, still getting recommended.
Okay, yeah. So that was like, again, the great grandfather of modern anime. So yeah. With that said, my company owns and runs Crunchyroll, which is Yeah, Anime Central, right?
I have my Crunchyroll through YouTube.
Yeah, but Crunchyroll, if you look at it, it's a Sony company. So
Oh, right.
we'll take the name. We'll
Good
take
job, Joe. Appreciate you. All the hard work over there.
the
If there's one piece of advice, we're going to leave it at here. If there's one piece of advice for a fighter that's just first gotten their armor, they're looking at how to get on to the competition team. They've got some time to go. They're fresh, first couple practices in armor, in their own armor. One piece of advice for them to get them to be a notable fighter, to be considered special in the sport, and to have built their own legacy, what would that be?
Don't give up. It takes time. It takes time. So you need to, and it takes the hard work. So get that cardio in shape, figure out your fitness routine, set your goals, incremental goals, achieve those goals, but then set bigger goals. But don't stop growing. You need to continue to grow. You need to continue to stretch, and stretching and growing is uncomfortable, right? So the most growth happens in uncomfortable situations. So push yourself to those boundaries, push yourself to those new goals, and then get to the next one. But if your eye is on the prize, find your way to get the steps to get there, right? You gotta make that mental preparation to go with the physical preparation. Put those all together, and then you have a winning strategy. But yeah, it's a mental game as much as it's a physical game. When I had to face up against guys that are 6'5" and 6'7", which I have, that's scary shit. These are big old freaking monsters, man. They're bigger than Greg. And
Only 6'1".
yeah, exactly. You're just a widow guy. But yeah, taking out some of those big guys, that's hard work, man. You got to work up to that. You got to prepare yourself. It doesn't just happen magically. It happens with hard work. So,
okay. Thank you fucking so much, Joe.
My pleasure, Greg.
This is why we're best friends, man.
Thank you, man. Hey, happy to be here. Enjoy the convo, and let's talk more soon. I'll give you some more Romania dirt and talking.
Joe Cadieux, my favorite night marshal now.
Thanks, buddy.
You're up from 25-1. We just finished up the Romanian Invitational in Oradea. Great day of fighting. 4 chevrons on the field. This tournament comes with a lot of physical preparation. There's 4 very serious teams that are working their hardest. The difference between the teams in athletics was very close. I think that the difference in the teams was, in a particular way, had a lot of mental preparation involved. What is your take on mental preparation, what to do, where you're coming from at it?
Right. Mental preparation is a big part of the game, whether you're a fighter or a marshal. For my marshal mental preparation, before an event, every day before an event, like the night before, I'll open up all the rules and I'll read them from cover to cover again to put them on the top of my mind so that they're available, so I know what we're going to work with. Everything is right there in new active memory. I want to make sure that I know exactly what the answers are to all the questions and have it available. Quick access memory. That's super important. You want to make sure you're polished and ready on your game as much as possible.
What's the importance of the marshals being mentally prepared versus the fighters?
You need to be able to make quick decisions, quick choices, quick determinations to keep your integration with the teams and the event as active and impactful as possible. Our goal is to promote safety, but also we're not the ones to determine the winners and the losers of the game. That is done on the field with a tournament of battle, right? It's decisions on strength and force and application of force. That's what should determine the victors, not the application of the rules. So we want to make sure that our implementation of the rules is as least impactful as possible.
Okay, let's say we have a brand new marshal. They've been marshalling for just a few tournaments.
rules versus a marshal that is quite experienced, maybe just about to get their chevron or just got their chevrons. What is the difference between their mental preparation, a novice versus a very experienced marshal?
Honestly, it starts with the basics. The rereading of the rules should be done by everybody, in my mind, because it's a routine I follow, but it's something that would apply to a new person, absolutely, because they need to have that information top of mind, but also to an experienced person. You read through the rules again, you'll see things you haven't, remembered from previous times. You will see stuff that you will recall as something that you may see as new or something that you overlooked before. So it doesn't matter how many times you read it, you'll find some new nuggets of information in there. And that's the whole point. You want to make sure that it's available and ready to go in your brain, and you don't have to think about the decision. You make it actively and you're done.
Is there any new rules or new specifications or new clarifications to the rules that you think are particularly important since we're in the run-up to the next Worlds?
Yep. We actually had a Marshal Committee meeting yesterday where we went through about 25 action item bullet points within the Marshal Committee and decided different actions we were going to take in relation to the next rules drop. So there will be some clarifications on things in the duels categories, a couple in the Buhurt categories. Nothing that's a major rewrite. It's more of a slight verbiage adjustment to make it more of the intended implementation of the rules.
So these rewrites and the things that come out about the rules changes or the rules clarifications, how does should that affect a duelist's mindset going into a fight?
So one of the things to remember about duels is the intent is a nightly duel. It is not intended to be a grappling event. It's not intended to be a strength versus strength contest. It's a skill versus skill contest. So it's placement of the sword or weapon to strike a specific location, scoring a point that's unimpeded. That's the goal. To that effect, grappling, wrestling, punching, etc. are really prohibited or only allowed in certain specific situations. So the goal is to keep duels as duels and not let them go into pro fights. Pro fights, you go crazy. You punch, you kick, you do whatever you need to do, and weapon strikes, right? So if you want to do pro fights, we have rules for that. If you want to do duels, we have rules for that. We want to keep those as unique categories.
So how do you differentiate between a fighter that is a duelist that is utilizing things that are allowed, let's say a punch that doesn't score points in a duel, but is allowed, or a trip that may be allowed, but doesn't score points, but they're able to incapacitate their opponent through these unscoring actions?
It's a tool in your tool bag, and it should be used accordingly. So we're not telling you to not use them. We're just reminding everyone that the victory conditions are based upon points scored, not necessarily the incapacitation of your opponent. So you need to strike the opponent at X number of times to score a number of points to get the victory. So that's how we determine victory. It's not based on or based around the incapacitation of your opponent. It's based on the points you score.
Let's take a step a little bit away from that and go to, let's say someone has to drop and just based on athleticism, where maybe they're slightly a more skilled duelist. They don't drop because they're incapacitated, but because they gas out or they wind out. Now, what do you think about the victory of a gas out from your opponent, where maybe you were losing, but just your athleticism wins you the
That's a valid victory. And that should be something as a warning for fighters who are competing that are not athletically as fit as they could be or should be. Honestly, the level of compete in our sport is increasing daily. I've seen it, in the last few years, just increasing dramatically, and that is something that everyone should be paying attention to. If you want to win in these events, you need to take it seriously as far as your training. You need to take it seriously as far as your preparation, physical, mental, otherwise. But if you're not taking it seriously, you will not win. You need to put the effort forth. You need to put forth the work to earn that gold and earn that medal. If you don't, someone's going to come and eat your lunch, right?
outside of our chevrons, I don't think anyone has a better view of what's happening in the list. Now, when you see someone who is an elite fighter versus a novice, or two elite fighters, is there a distinct difference between their mental preparation? What do you see them doing outside the list that gets them ready for inside the list to make them elite?
So one thing first, I think new fighters can also be, maybe even excel at mental preparation. I know a new fighter who's been around for about a year. He's pretty good at that. We have others who maybe new fighters that have good sports backgrounds or the good martial arts backgrounds, where that mental preparation is part of their daily routine. It's part of their process. That goes a long way. The preparation, mental, physical, etc. If you have a good foundation or background in those areas, bring that to the table. And you could be a new guy with a high level of physical compete and still do very well in this sport today. As we continue to grow that bar or raise the bar, it's going to be harder for new people to just step in and excel, because we're going to have a higher level of compete in general. Right now, it's kind of like the Wild West still. There's still an opportunity. You come in with 6 guns blazing, you can do some damage and have some fun.
How does someone develop their foundation of mental preparation? I know for me, it's a lot about affirmations and goal setting, and I have special breathing techniques. What is the approach that you think a novice player who's coming in, that maybe they come to their first elite event, and what should they be mentally prepping for when they face guys who don't lose?
We had a small conversation about this earlier, but I think part of it is, prepare to win, but prepare to lose. Prepare on both sides. Be ready for both outcomes, because both could be possible. And mentally prepare for victory and success. Know what it takes to win, and be ready to do the things necessary. Do the work. And this means you need to be ready to put yourself out there, go to the limit of your physical capabilities, and your mental capabilities, your mental preparation will get you there. Will unlock the ability for you to physically compete at a higher level. It takes practice and timing. A lot of people don't spend enough time in that aspect, in my opinion, but it's super important. My kids played high-level ice hockey, and that was a big factor. We would spend time doing video reviews, and it was video reviews, but it was used in the context of using that for mental preparation. What worked, what didn't work. What can we do better from a intellectual standpoint, from a thoughtful standpoint, versus just the physical activities. But there's a high need for athletes to spend time in those areas. And I think that's something you understand and that other people may not. And it's something that high-level athletes and high-level folks in our sport need to consider, that as something that they can add to their tool bag and make them have an even higher level of compete.
Okay, you've been marshalling a long time, I believe since 2014?
2013 was my first opportunity to marshal.
2013.
Yeah. Yep.
You've had a serious career of watching the development of the sport and the development of fighters. Is there one particular instance that sticks out to you among all the fights you've watched from first-person view that was the most amazing thing you saw from an individual fighter?
There's been a couple opportunities I've seen where we've seen multiple takedowns done. Not counting your performance today, sir. But we've had other opportunities where we've had some folks, Nick Shank, Order Draconis, we gave him the MVP award one time at, I think, the first Ventura event, because he did 3 takedowns in one round. And then he went back and did 2 takedowns in the next round. So he was a very high level of compete, very high level of execution. He would take guys that are very well-prepared martial artists and dump them on their head. And they would be surprised that this guy who's 5'5" and flipping them over his hip and making them wonder why they're seeing the world upside down. It was a very exciting thing for another short guy to see another short guy doing some successful work here. So I was very happy to award him with an MVP award. There's been other instances like that. We have our buddy in Australia He's doing
Mr. Campbell?
Yes, he's doing fantastic work down there. Mr. Campbell, there's another gentleman who you know.
The short guy,
Yes,
Sam White?
yes,
Sam White has
Sam,
tall
my
energy,
man.
though.
Yeah, Sam, my man. So, but first time I ran into Sam, he was working on a Merc team at Fresno.
Oh, okay.
And we thought, okay, we know who's going to win. It's going to be Order Draconis. Second place is going to be whatever team. And then third place, who knows, but it's not going to be this little pickup team who just like showed up. Turned out Sam was one of the guys on the pickup team.
Oh.
Some of the big monsters from Ordo charged into Sam, and they ended up on their ear. They're like, how did this happen? Meanwhile, Sam is already moving on to his next target and taking people out. His little pickup team got second place. So they absolutely blew our brackets up, and they took the bull by the horns, and they made it work. And they had a few other ringers that were also great fighters who were under the radar, flying solo, and just happened to stick together and make a good team. But usually pickup teams don't work. You have pickup teams with some bazookas on there, you can do some damage.
That's true.
Yeah.
Fully agree. Is there one special moment in your Buhurt career that outside the list involved with the Buhurt guys that you saw something that was really special that sticks out? Not in fighting, but something else that really stood out among maybe character or sportsmanship or whatever.
So one of the big reasons why I come back to the sport over and over again, year over year, is the community. It's the people. It's the brotherhood, the community, the support that is given to individuals who to jump in this pool and try to swim. It's a little bit of an aggressive area. It's aggressive sport. It's martial art. We're trying to knock people down and disarm them or put them in the dirt, literally. However, there is a brotherhood of sharing information, of supporting each other. At the end of the day, getting together and having a beer. I have memories of going back to when I was in Serbia in 2019, going from camp to camp and being literally hijacked, sat down and given a bowl of soup from their campfire and said, here, try this. This is my mother's recipe. Oh, here, try this alcohol. This is from my mother's recipe also. And you would get a chance to sample cuisines and food from all over the world from people who just wanted to share with you. And that's amazing. That's something outside the arena that you can't just make up. You can't just find the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the friendship that lives on, and that's why I'm here.
So we give our medals to our fighters and who did the best by the numbers and who earned the MVP. But marshals sometimes are getting medals, and marshals are getting MVP, specifically like Carnage.
Yeah.
Our friend Dallas got MVP at Carnage. Why is this also important in comparison to the fighters getting their medals?
Recognition of high-performing athletes, high-performing individuals should happen whether they're part of the winning team or the team of folks that make the event happen. I had a discussion earlier with one of my marshals about what does it take to run an event? Well, you need some fighters, you need some good fighter teams to show up and be competitive, but you need an event organizer to be silly enough to take on the burden of running an event. And you need marshal team to be the arbitrators of the rules and the executors of the rules. You need a secretary to record everything. These are all the individual components that come together to make an event. If you don't have one of those components, your event will suffer. So recognition of the effort put in, of the high level of work that's done. Dallas earned his MVP there. He did some great work. He was recognized by multiple people, and he
had some great dodges, some great dives.
Yeah, that's part of the fun. Yeah. I had one of those today. I felt the wind of the blades swooping by my head, and that's a little too close. I shouldn't have been that close, but this is a little challenging to get out of in some places.
So we were lucky enough today to have 4 chevrons on the field.
Yep.
How does the selection between, especially at an international, if you know, having so many chevrons versus a tournament where we have a lot of marshals, but many of them being newbies and maybe not even just a conference level marshal. What's the difference between the smoothness of the tournament and how the selection process goes?
In a lot of respect, we we don't necessarily get to select who the marshals are who attend and who are able to compete in our event. We put out a request. We ask for people to join us. Some are able to financially and time-wise commit to it. Others are not. And that is, they may have family issues and obligations, work stuff, who knows, that they may not be able to attend. We are lucky to have a lot of events in California and in the U.S. where we are able to bring in high-level marshals from other places. We also have a growing high-level marshal community in the U.S. We are continuing to grow that. I think it's important for us to try to not have an imbalance of trainees versus certified marshals. However, if that's all we can get is some trainees, that's better than nobody, right? Nobody means no event. So we have to put somebody in those shoes and in those roles. So if we can get a couple trainees, that's much better than canceling the event for lack of marshals.
Pause. Is there a certain level of trust between the marshals based on how the rules get imposed and how the rules that aren't so clear get defined mid-tournament?
It's essential that we implement and respect the rules as written. There are some convention areas where we have to make some interpretations. However, for the majority of our rule implementations and executions, it's based on what's codified. It's based on what's documented and what the process is that we've established. There's a high level of trust between the marshals that are certified and or trained on how they will execute and deliver the rules, how they will implement the rules, when we start and stop fights, how we recognize points, how we implement penalties, cards, etc. There is a lot of work that we do to make sure we are consistent. I chirp this all the time about consistency. That's one of my mantras. I always talk about it. Of all the things in the world that I want to try to grow into the sport is consistency. I want to make sure that when Greg goes to one event with a marshal that's certified and trained, he will get the same outcome as he gets from another person, because that's what we should be providing. So what is enough sufficient force, what is a legal or illegal action, all of these items should be easy to understand and consistent across the country, across the world, etc. So I trust my marshals that are certified to follow the rules as written and to implement it as requested.
So we're at what I would call a high-level event.
Yes, sir.
We had an excellent high-level marshalling. From what I saw, everything ran smooth.
Yeah,
As
usual.
As usual, what is the next step for the future of high-level events?
Well, we have a World Championship coming up next year. We're still evaluating different proposals. We are still accepting proposals for the Buhurt International World Championship for 2027. We have some amazing ideas or places that have already submitted. We have some opportunities to get more. I think it's going to be an amazing event when we figure it out and figure out which location it's going to be. That will be the next high-level tournament that I know that's coming up for an international level. We also have country level ones. I'm going to be attending an event called Way of Honor in August. This is in Germany. Never attended it before. It's a high level event. It's another big one that I've heard good things about, and lots of teams from the U.S. and other places go and attend it. So it's going to be a highly attended event, a wonderful event, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
I don't want to sound controversial because I'm not sure what the answer to this is.
Okay.
But there's BI and there's IMCF. Our team, our local California team of Soldados, is going to IMCF. You, as far as I'm aware, do not do IMCF events.
Correct.
Why is that?
So these are different leagues. It's just like, think of the NFL and they had the Bush League, or like there was an arena league football team for a short period of time or whatever. This is kind of like that. There are multiple leagues. There's in golf. There's the PGA, and then there's a new one that came out, the I Live, and this would be like that, another league that competes in the same space. So that's what IMCF is. There's a long history, which I'm not going to go into right now, but in short, they're two different leagues. They have the opportunity to have two different rule sets. They have things that are implemented slightly differently, and that's enough of a difference that could be confusing to people implementing it, that I do not want to stick my toe in two different pools and answer the question wrong. So, for example, if I was trying to learn both rule sets and I answered a question incorrectly, that would be a very bad situation. So I want to keep my head focused on one rule set. That's why I personally don't participate in IMCF.
So, I've traveled international quite a bit. I have my own system I have for not only making my travel go smooth, but for experiencing the place I'm at. If you had advice for marshals and fighters that get invited to both run and fight in these international events, not as a fighter, but as someone who's coming to experience culture, what would that be?
Take some extra time to experience it yourself. Stick your toe deep in the water of the place you're going to. Go ahead either before or after the event and spend some time learning the local culture, experiencing the food, seeing the sights, having a good time, meeting local people. Go to like some of the local restaurants and pubs and just chow down, enjoy yourself, have a ball. That is one of the wonders of the world that we live in, where we can just travel across the world and do our wonderful sport and meet new people around the world. It's great. So embrace it by not just going out and competing, but learning about the place, experiencing it, etc. It's worth it.
So we talked about the best thing you've seen in the list, the best thing you've seen out of list for fighters. Is there a special country or a special time that sticks out for you? I know for me, I had my special time in Japan where things went well, and the best meal I ever had in my life was in Argentina, where I had no idea what I was getting into when I started this meal. Is there a special something around the world with all the involvement you've been involved in with traveling? Is there a special something that sticks out? This was a time.
I always go back to my first big Battle of the Nations event in 2013 in Aigues-Mortes, France. We had wonderful times where we sat around and drank chai tea at the local Indian restaurant, and were there until 2 a.m, and then we switched to whiskey. Had a great time, and we were up every night until 3 or 4 a.m, and then back up at 7 or 8 to get back to work and start working on making sure armor was all fixed and repaired and ready to go. But that was a wonderful experience. The camp life, where you can go from country to country's camp, try some cuisine, try some food, try the local wine, the food, the beer, whatever, and just it was my first real big international immersion experience, and that's again why I recommend the immersion part of it. It's so important, and that's another reason why I keep coming back to the big international events.
So this was my first international Buhurt event. I think that this fortress that we're at is particularly special. There's some Knights Templars that are buried here as part of the museum. Is there a particular venue you've been to that was this, maybe the culture wasn't what, special for Buhurt or whatever, just the venue was an amazing place to be fighting in?
One of the top ones that stick out is the bullfighting arena in Barcelona.
Wow.
We rented out the bullfighting arena in 2017, and we had our event in that arena. So I have pictures of that, and I was on the field when we had it filled with all the Spaniards from town. They were singing their football songs back and forth. You could feel the energy in the place.
Incredible.
So that was awesome.